Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. Woo! The sensation, Jason Gavon!
Danmark har fået en ny verdensmester. Mikkel Kessler. He's the fucking champion of the world. Mikkel, mand.
And welcome to the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast, episode number 135. Well, hello everybody and welcome. I'm Steve Wellings, and our main man, Andy Patterson, is having a few last-minute technical problems, so I've stepped into the breach at short notice to just get this underway, and we'll see where we end up. I'm joined tonight by Adam Smith, Donny Baseball's on the call, Alex Morris and Kurt Ward. And we're going to get into the Kovalev, Pascal and all that type of stuff a little bit later on, but we're going to start off in the UK with Box Nation on Friday night. I know this is the big card that everybody's just dying to talk about, so if you do want to ring in, just add Boxing Asylum Pod onto Skype and we'll get you on to have you say. Now Kurt, like I said, on Friday night we had Frank Buglioni in action. He was supposed to fight Fedor Chudinov for a version of some form of the world title, if you want to call it that, but it didn't happen in the end. But Frank Warren got him a fight anyway on the Wembley Arena card, and he knocked out Fernando Castaneda in 5 rounds. This guy wasn't in any great shape. It's not going to be the toughest test of Buglioni's career. Were you impressed with him? He did what he had to do. He was quite professional, quite thorough in his approach.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the positive, when he's got his big world title opportunities, taken away, he could have came in, out of shape or not mentally focused, but, he knew he needed to get the job done, and he did it. The guy was fighting, I mean, I don't know where they got him from. I mean, this guy's got some bulimic issues. I mean, he was a welterweight in August, then he was a cruiserweight in November, now he's coming at whatever weight this was. I mean, I don't know what he was up to, but he looked pretty poor, to be honest, and Buglioni, got the job done as quickly as possible. It would have been better if it was a 1-round job. But yeah, we spoke last week on the pod, and this card was just horrific viewing. I mean, it was just from start to finish, it was mostly terrible. I mean, and I feel sorry for a lot of the people who went there, to be honest, if they paid for that. I mean, unless they were there for a specific boxer to show their sport, it was a pretty bad viewing for the boxing fan, I think. And Warren really needs to up his game, because this just is not good for boxing fans. I know we want to see boxing on TV, but cards like this, they just turn people off, in my opinion.
Alex, we mentioned Buglioni there, but there was a whole host of delights on this Friday night card. I think we had Boy Jones Jr. was involved. The usual suspects like Lewis Petit and Mitchell Smith got a win over Dennis Tuberon, who went the distance with Josh Warrington. Mitchell Smith managed to get him out in the first round. We also saw an early win for Oval McKenzie, Jamie Cox, Billy Joe Saunders. I could see why he had the rust shedding exercise, but I still thought it was a little bit of a risk going in with this Johan Bloyer with the Andy Lee fight so close. Derek Chisora got a win as well in the first round against this Lob Janidze. I saw him fight Dillian White in Belfast recently, and I knew he wasn't going to be much of a challenge. And then probably the best fight of the night, I thought, Gary Corcoran against Rick Godding. I would go so far as to say, even though the card was bad, like Kurt said, it could have been worse. Would that be fair to say?
Well, yeah, I mean, it could have been worse. I mean, fucking hell, the whole place could have been set on fire and everyone died, and it could have been a bit worse in that sense, but it was fucking horrific still. I mean, the Buglioni fight, it was just awful viewing. I mean, I usually don't mind watching Buglioni because he's usually half decent to watch. He's usually a bit of, car crash TV. But his opponent was so horrific, and there was just no action for the first 4 rounds, essentially, until Buglioni stopped him. The fucking Mitchell Smith's fight. Mitchell Smith had a go at this opponent when Josh Warrington fought him. He was saying, this opponent's shit. He's too shit for Josh Warrington. What an awful opponent selection. But then he decides to fight him, and then he blasts him out in a round, just proving his point, really. But it's still not making him look any, what sort of step up, what sort of statement is that he managed to knock out a guy in a single round that he thinks is too shit for one of his main rivals. Yeah, I think it does prove that... maybe Warrington is a bit obvious. Well, he is a hype job. He's the biggest Leeds hype job going, but I think it just proved that it's a bit more that his skill is a bit, overhyped as well. It'd be interesting to see that fight down the road, but obviously it wouldn't happen because of the division. I don't think Hearn will ever put Warrington in with Mitchell Smith. At least not before the Lee Selby fight, because that's the big money fight, isn't it? Old Lee Selby and Josh Warrington in Leeds, and imagine the fucking riots we're going to get after that. But, Mitchell Smith, he's an odd one. He thinks that he's better than fucking Lomachenko, and he thinks he's going to rule the roost and all that. But he's got a bit of confidence, I suppose, but he's still a bit of a knob. Chisora, well, whatever. That opponent was nothing. Who else was on the card? Billy Joe Saunders. Yeah, he was about a 500 to 1 on. I don't think I've ever seen that.
That's starting overweight as well, wasn't he, Billy Joe?
Yeah, he's big, wasn't he? Yeah.
So what was the point in that? I mean, yeah, you say it as a risk, but not really. The only risk would have been if he did like something in a fucking $1 million baby and slipped over and broke his fucking neck.
Yeah, of course. I think it was a risk, maybe, like the head's going in, that type of a risk, yeah. Yeah,
but, it was shit, wasn't it? It was really shit.
I just think that's the problem. I mean, no one's got issues with, Chisora coming out, he needs a fight back after, a bad loss to Fury. But when the whole card is mostly those type of fights, when a guy just blasts him out, I mean, over Mackenzie's opponent, it was an easy victory for Over. I think it's like when you got a whole card of stay busy fights, it's just awful to watch, and they could have had a couple of fights on. I know Chudnoff was supposed to be on there, but he pulled out. But that doesn't excuse the rest of the horrific card.
Well, one person who maybe didn't mind the card as much as the rest of us was Adam Smith, but that was by virtue of him not seeing a single second of it. But Adam, even though you didn't see Billy Joe Saunders in action, just in general, he came in, he had the fight with Bloyer, there was never any doubt he was going to win it. He's going to go off to training camp now in the MGM Marbella, I think, and cut down in weight, and he'll be ready for the big fight with Andy Lee on September the 19th. Andy Lee was ringside. He said that he didn't particularly see anything from Saunders, as you would expect from a fight like that. But they'll know all about each other, won't they? They'll have watched countless videos. Adam Booth will be sizing him up with Andy Lee, and we expect Billy Joe to be in great condition in September. Just on that fight, I mean, are you picking Saunders to win? Do you think Lee's power will come through? I mean, what do you think in general? Just chatting about that one.
I think it's a cracking matchup, to be honest. We've got obviously we've got Lee's power against Billy Joe's boxing ability. Great. I think it's a really, really good fight. I haven't pitched any side of the fence yet. I'm definitely perched on top of the fence, and we'll be making my mind up closer to the time. But I think Lee's definitely been behind on a number of occasions in the recent past, and obviously pulled it out of the bag. So Billy Joe will need to be switched on the whole of the fight. He took some half decent bombs against Eubank Jr. last November. Managed to survive that, so he'll need to be even more switched on this time round if he is to win. It's almost a pick and fight with the bookies as well, pretty much 50-50. Should be a cracker, and I think the undercard sounds like it's going to be certainly interesting, if not decent. But Friday's card, waste of time, and really you lot, whoever's watched it, need looking at really a Friday night watching that utter tripe Oh, it was shocking. I'd love to know the attendance as well at the Wembley Arena. I mean, even if Buglioni has bought his regular par for the course, 1,000 fans. Oh, it was tripe. And that fella that Buglioni was against fought welterweight and cruiserweight in the same year, and was
within 3 months actually.
Oh my God! And he was, I think, because Buglioni's coming to do a job. He was obviously fit, ready to go, disappointed with the pull-out, wanted to bash someone up. So it served a purpose there. Buglioni was bang on weight, and even the other fellow who was, 3, maybe 4, 5 inches smaller, with these bulimic tendencies, as Curtis mentioned. I think he was £8 over. It was funny at the weigh-in though. The announcer almost mumbled the Mexican kid's weight, and then Francis Warren asked him to come and get back on the scales to have another go. And that didn't happen. It was a shambles from start to finish. It was what was the point in the whole evening? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Donny, I know you didn't get to see too much of this. You were scrambling furiously to try and find a stream, but it maybe didn't happen for you. But we mentioned earlier Derek Chisora got a good win. I know you've got a soft spot for a heavyweight. We saw David Price getting flattened last week. Derek's got this latest win. I know it was a nondescript win. Hughie Fury obviously got a victory on Saturday night as well. We've got Anthony Joshua rolling along. A few good heavyweights on the UK scene at the moment. And Derek Chisora, do you think he still has something left to offer? Or do you think he can win against this type of level of opponents, but when he steps up against a Fury or somebody like that, he'll just be found out?
To me, Chisora kind of reminds me a little bit of, I don't know, obviously not in terms of the physical talent and skill, but in terms of the mentality, he seems almost like a Mike Tyson type where you don't know which psychological, being is going to show up in the ring. And I think that when he's at his best, he can be pretty good. And down the line somewhere, I would love to see him fight Anthony Joshua. I think that'd be a great test for him.
Do you think that Derek hasn't got a great deal to offer? I mean, what about if they put him in with David Price? Do you think that matchup is... I mean, would you like to see that?
I mean, if I was masochistic, yeah. Price would get smashed. I mean, unless he landed a bomb, first of all. But Derek's still got a good chin, though. I mean, he took some bombs from Hay. He could take a lot of, even against Fury, they had to call it. You know what I mean? He didn't. It's not like he went flat out on the ground. I mean, he can take probably whatever Price can dish out, and when he hits back, Price would be finished. Even if Price was interested in that fight, it would be a long time. They're going to need four more build back up fights before the new David Price can be here again. But yeah, I mean, I still think basically Chisora can market himself as a real test for young, up-and-coming, promising heavyweights. And when he surprises a few of them and beats them, then I think he actually launches himself back into contender status.
I watched an interview with Chisora last week, and it's almost like he's training with just some lads from the gym. He's just bundled 2 or 3 mates from the gym together, and they're training him now. It's not like he didn't make out they had an outright trainer. Obviously, Don Charles has gone out the window. I think
there's 2 fights for him though, isn't it? I mean, he's talking about Lucas Brown fight, but I don't think that fight happened because Brown is on the verge of like a WBA regular or whatever the Shagayev bout he's got. But there's also the Tepper fight, which obviously you just saw him knock out David Price for the European title. I mean, that title, has shown that it can get you close to a world title shot. So Chisora against Tepper, that'd be a good fight.
Well, one night after we mentioned Hughie Fury got the win over George Arias over 10 rounds. Kurt, while you're on the subject of the heavyweights, I suppose you might as well just morph into Hughie's performance. George Arias wasn't up to much, even though he came in with a sort of reputation for being a bit of a puncher. It was mostly done over in Brazil against lesser guys, and he was a little bit of a punch bag at times. He was motoring forward, but he was following Hughie around the ring. Hughie Fury generally was able to do pretty much what he wanted to. He showed a good jab, good movement. He's very fast and athletic. I thought he looked in pretty good shape. The likes of Arias, that was a good test for him now, but I would like to see him in against guys in the future who are maybe going to throw a few punches. Is he ready, do you think, Kurt, for that sort of little step up now beyond these type of opponents?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. I mean, we got to remember he's only 20 years old, and he has. I think that's his 16th fight now. Problem is, he came in for that fight at 217 pounds, which that's a lot slimmer than what he comes in at. He's usually in the mid, I think about 235, and he's had this illness. He hasn't been as active as he would have liked because of this illness. They're saying he's going to be on the Klitschko Fury undercard, so that's only 3 months away now. So I think the best thing for him is, keeping him active and getting him out. It's a bit different to Joshua, because Joshua's in the spotlight and everyone's going to be on his opponent. So every faces they're going to trash. Whereas I think Fury, because he's going about his business a lot more quietly, he can do this. He can fight 5 times a year against average opponents, and he can work on stuff. He's not going to be like an Anthony Joshua where he's blasting guys out in a round. So he's not going to get that hype behind him yet. But I think when he's fighting these type of guys, he's obviously doing a lot of rounds. He can work on a lot of stuff, and he can improve slowly but surely. And I think with him, it would be nice to step him up, but I still think they're going to keep him. I think it's going to be more slowly done, to be honest, because like I said, he's only 20 years old and he's still got a lot of things to work on. But he's a good work in progress, I'd say.
I like Hughie Fury, and I like the way he's been matched. I know he's been out through an injury/illness, but yeah, I like he's been put in with some half-decent tests. He's gone the distance, obviously, last night and previously as well. So, and like you say, he's only young, so he's coming along nicely. And I think, I know they're trying to get basically every member of the Fury family into boxing, but I think it's only the two that are going to cut it. That they're bringing some real poor long members of the family out of the woodwork. But yeah, Hughie Fury is progressing nicely, and that undercard fight in Germany would be good.
Okay, Adam, thanks very much. We might have Andy Patterson coming on shortly. I think he's furiously working on his mic. Andy, are you there? Oh. I can hear something in the background.
Sounds like a DJ scratching.
I think he's mixing the desks. Well, while we try and get Andy on, Adam, did you see Tyson in the changing rooms before the fight on Channel 5 when they were asking him for his advice to Hughie? Some of the things he was coming off with, dropping a couple of Viagras, I think was one of them, wasn't it?
I still can't have a conclusion on Fury's comedy. I think sometimes a lot of it is forced, but then sometimes when you catch him off guard and he's on a little bit of a roll, I think he's brilliant, to be honest. He's going to get knocked out against Klitschko, but some of the stuff he says is brilliant, and we'll obviously come on to that a little bit more later.
Alex, I don't know if you saw the Fury fight against George Arias, if you want to just chuck your 2 pence worth in, or if you want to discuss anything else on the Mick Hennessy card. I mean, the main event was pretty good between Damon Jones and Nick Blackwell, but if you want to have a word about Hughie first, that'd be appreciated.
Sorry, my mic was muted on Skype, so no one probably... not on Skype, on Mixler, so no one probably heard any of that. Yeah. Hughie was... he was good for the first 4 or 5 rounds, then he got a bit muted. He cruised to the end of the victory, shall we say. And, I thought he could have done better. The whole weight issue with him and the illness, I think, is obviously quite a big impact to his performance and what he's going to be doing in the future. But I think he's very talented. I think he's fundamentally he's got a lot of prospects and a lot of future. And I think the fact that he hasn't got, as you mentioned, he hasn't got this spotlight on him all the time isn't really putting all of that added pressure on him. He doesn't have to worry about appeasing fans all the time and appeasing all the critics, people like us, shall we say. I mean, we've always said that's the issue with Joshua. I think that it's the way they talk him up, it's the way that they try and build him up as being ready for Klitschko, ready for Fury, ready for Wilder, who's going to knock him out whenever he wants. But yeah, then he fights fucking Gary Cornish. It just seems a bit embarrassing. But Hughie, as he plods on and does his own thing. As for the Blackwell fight, I thought it was a really good fight. I think Jones was just really beating him quite easily at the start. I think that they addressed this, his trainer, I forgot his name now, his trainer, Gary Lockett, yeah. Yeah, he addressed it. He was saying, we really weren't happy with him the way he started. He started really slow and he came out really poorly. And that's a good thing to hear. I think they weren't all blowing smoke up Blackwell's arse in, or great KO, great punch. You did it. You pulled out of the bag. They were saying, well, you started shit. You need to improve on that. You need to get better before your next fight. And I think that's very refreshing to see. It was a good little fight and a great little knockout as well. So for people who watch it on Channel 5, hopefully it will increase a bit more viewership next time round.
Adam, just regarding Nick Blackwell there, he's done things the hard way, hasn't he? Sort of learnt on the job, a bit of old school. He did a bit of unlicensed, I think, at the beginning. Then he had the fights with Murray, and he's been in with Saunders, hasn't he? And John Ryder as well, I think it was. He hasn't done things easily, and you have to respect him for the way he's gone about his work, and you also have to respect Damon Jones. He took the fight with a relative lack of pro experience. He only had about 13 fights. He was a decent amateur by all accounts, and he can come again. But this was a pretty good scrap for 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. I enjoyed it. Adam?
Kind of took me by surprise, the Channel 5 card, as they sometimes often do. You don't really get hyped much beforehand, but yeah, I turned it on and enjoyed it. Like you say, he was a decent amateur, old Jones, but I think it was quite clear that he was probably going to gas, and he was just starting to slow down. Obviously, he got caught with a big right hand, and that was it, night over. But yeah, Blackwell was making a habit of being behind, and he loses rounds quite clearly as well. He did against Ryder, obviously, he did again last night, but I'm a massive fan of Gary Lockett, and he does talk sense, and I think he'll continue to bring Blackwell on. I was watching it last night. Now, you might call me daft, but I think Blackwell might struggle to make 3 defences of the British title with all what's going on and possibly the lack of opponents. I mean, someone like Blackwell, I won't be surprised if they do turn up for one of these world title shots at middleweight. Mick's got no connections. He don't have to stay on on Sky. On Channel 5, sorry, Blackwell could turn up somewhere, maybe in Monaco or in Brooklyn or something like that, and be in for one of these plastic world titles, no problem. He's obviously got the equaliser in his right hand, but also on the Channel 5 card, just to mention to Lee Wood, I know I mentioned him last week, he's now moved up to featherweight. His opponent last night wasn't up to much, but I think featherweight division beneath Lee Selby and Warrington, I think's rather open, and I think that Lee Wood can definitely get a British title fight by the end of the year, so good luck to him.
We're going to try Andy now. He's got some kind of contraption set up on his computer, so we'll see if it's working. Andy, can you hear us?
Great input, that was. I agree 100% with that.
Andy, I guess we're still having trouble getting you on. Not to worry, we'll plunder on regardless. I think. Kurt, any thoughts on the Channel 5 card before we move on?
Nah, I think everything's been said. Move on, Steve.
No problem. Donny, are you still with us?
Yes.
Did you see the BJ Flores Shumanov fight by any chance?
No, that's the one I need to watch on replay. I was busy watching the HBO card.
Okay, we're going to get on to HBO next. If anybody saw Flores Shumanov and thinks it warrants any discussion, then please feel free to jump in now.
I saw it, but does it warrant discussion? No.
Okay, fair enough.
A line or two, maybe.
Anybody else? No? I didn't see it, so I can't comment. I just know the result, that's all. But okay, well, I think I'll take that. I'll take the hint.
Well, Kurt, how did Shumanov look at cruiserweight? Because he was always a light heavyweight. That's a big jump.
Yeah, he looked smaller. He filled out well, but he still looked a bit smaller to Flores. But I was saying off air, his usual style, which is a bit come forward, and he's a bit stiff. He actually used a lot of movement, which was quite funny to watch. He was moving around the ring. I mean, I made a joke on Twitter. I said his nickname should be Bayboot Will-o'-the-Wisp Shumanov, because the way he was moving. And Flores just couldn't get near him. He was just so slow. He just couldn't get near him, and he deserved the win. And it was a rubbish fight. I think Shumanov landed 5 punches around. It was a really poor fight, but I think most of us expected that anyway.
Okay, Kurt, I think we'll leave Shumanov where he is there, and we'll move on to the big one over in Las Vegas. We've all seen Sergei Kovalev. We know what he brings. He's an absolute beast. He beat Najib Mohammadi in the third round, which I was pleased about. I'd predicted the third round, but it didn't take a genius to see that right from the beginning, that despite his herky-jerky style, Mohammadi looked like a guy who had a few losses on his record. He'd been knocked out early. Once Kovalev starts landing the big bombs, you're banging trouble. And there were, I think, Donny, a few pointers there. Kovalev's accuracy is what impressed me so much. He's such an accurate puncher. Mohammadi did back him up a few times. He did land a few shots. It always makes me wonder what would happen if Kovalev and Donny Stevenson got in the ring together. We know Stevenson has huge one-punch power. He's very fast as well. He could potentially cause Kovalev problems, but one thing's for sure, the likes of Mohammadi were never going to cause him problems. It was a defence of the title. That was it. We're just going to move on now for Kovalev onto something bigger and better.
Yeah, and hopefully that Andre Ward fight happens sooner rather than later. But, I mean, that's what they were talking about in the post-fight interviews last night. I thought it was interesting they chose Vegas as a venue. Maybe they're trying to make him and a Kovalev an attraction out there. And until he does get the big names in the ring with him, blasting guys out in Las Vegas may be a good marketing technique. They threw Pascal on the card, and I don't know how many tickets they sold, but I think that was Kovalev's first time fighting in Las Vegas. And so that was a good way to sell himself, obviously, was to blast a guy out in the third round. If I was reading the forum correctly last night, I'm pretty sure Andy had something on a second round knockout. And he almost finished him inside the second round, but he hung on for the third round as well. So I think Andy lost a few pounds there. But anyways, it was a impressive fight, and I just hope they keep him active, which they seem to have no trouble keeping him active. The question is, can they keep him active with good names? I know that Pascal wants that rematch, so maybe that's going to be happening now that he got at least the official win last night. More on that later, of course. But I mean, that's one of those things. The first fight, did have some good exchanges, and the question you originally asked, you said, well, it makes me wonder what would happen if someone could really take Kovalev's power and give it back to him. And you mentioned potentially Adonis Stevenson, but I don't think, aside from that Darnell Boone occasion, and Boone, is a enigma. He drops everybody. He dropped Andre Ward, even though he's a journeyman. Aside from that, I don't think we've ever seen Kovalev really badly hurt. I just think he's kind of like a destroyer. He can seemingly take any punch. He gives out a lot worse than he gets. And we also found out recently that he can box too. There's more to him than just a big right hand. He has a diverse skill set, and we're starting to see it come out. Of course, he looks amazing against these types, the Mohammadi types. But just hope we can. If we've got to see a Pascal rematch, I'm fine with that. And I want to go full steam ahead of that Ward fight whenever they're both ready.
Kurt, you were mentioning on the Skype chat there's a potential fight between Kovalev and Isaac Chilemba in Russia, and then Adonis Stevenson looks like he's fighting Tommy Karpensi. Donnie mentioned their activity, and I've always been of the thought that I'd rather see fighters active, like the way Golovkin is, and fighting lesser opposition than inactive and having just that one or two big fights a year. Where do you sit regarding that, and are you happy with Kovalev fighting Chilemba if then a couple of months later he's in another fight or a bigger fight?
Yeah, well, they were talking about the Pascal rematch. I know people say, was there any point in a rematch? But to be fair, it was a fun fight, and there's not a lot of options out there for Kovalev. It's a bit the same with Stevenson, to be fair. There's not a lot of options. If they're not fighting each other, and we know they're not, there's not a lot of options out there apart from Jean Pascal. Hopkins now is 50 years old, and maybe Stevenson could fight him if they could make the deal, but they probably won't. But there's not a lot for either guys, so you're going to have to see them fight these types of guys. Chilemba, you'd probably say he's a top 10 guy. It might be weak, but he is. Let's see who beats Isaac Chilemba. Only one man's ever done it, I believe. So, and you got to think if that's going to be his homecoming fight in Russia, then fair enough. I think Isaac Chilemba's, he's not a dangerous opponent. That's the thing. He won't test Kovalev's chin, but he can be an awkward fighter. We've seen him. He moves a lot, and he should take Kovalev a few rounds. Stevenson against Carpentier, I mean, that's just a horrible fight. But again, they're not like the options are there, and it's just hard to see who these guys will fight. I mean, Beterbiev's there. Obviously, that could be someone for Stevenson to fight. But Andre Ward is the main one for Kovalev, but he's going to want at least another fight, which will probably be around the November time as well. After fighting Paul Smith, he'll want another fight, and then hopefully that can be made. I mean, Cafe Duva said they want it for early 2016, and that'd be a great fight. But with Ward, you just don't know what he's going to do. He's one of these fighters who, he's obviously impressed everyone with the guys he's beaten, but not a lot of people really care about him in terms of fans and his style. So he likes to claim that have all these demands. A bit Mayweather-ish with the demands, but he hasn't got the same power or control like Mayweather has. So I don't know if he still wants to fight at 168 if he can make it, which I don't know if he will, or if he wants to go to 175 and will he want to face Kovalev. Yeah, it's just a hard one to say, but I think that, to me, I'd rather, out of Golovkin and Ward and Kovalev and Ward, I'd rather see Kovalev and Ward, to be fair.
Alex, Kovalev's opponents, we're still deliberating over who he's going to be fighting, i.e. the big names. Andre Ward's name's been mentioned. A possible fight with Artur Beterbiev in Russia's also been mentioned. He just seems like the type of guy who just wants to fight. He doesn't care who's in the opposite corner. We saw when Mohammadi was down on his knees last night, Kovalev was sort of pushing his gloves up and down, saying, "Come on, get back up, because I don't want this to be over yet." He's just a bit of a nasty bastard, isn't he? He just wants to hurt people.
I think it's the best way to describe him. I think he is just a nasty bastard. He loves to fight, and I think he loves, the competition and the sport, and just the real grittiness of it. I think that, you hear stories of how a lot of people get into boxing. They have tough upbringings. They, a lot of street fights and things like that. And I think Kovalev, tough Russian streets. I think he might have been in the army at some point or something like that. He had a big amateur career, and he just seems like he lives for that sort of conflict. He lives for proving that he's the bigger man, that he's the hard bastard, and he shows it when he fights, even when he's fighting absolute muck. I mean, Mohammadi, he wasn't really up to much last night, to use a bit of a cliche, but Kovalev still wanted him to get back off the floor so he could pummel him back down again. We saw it against Pascal as well, where he's pissing himself laughing that Pascal is on complete jelly legs. He did it against Silak as well. He's a bit of a mentalist, and of course you've got the Simikov tragedy as well, which doesn't seem to have bothered him at all, which is maybe perhaps a bit controversial to think about. But I love watching Kovalev. I love the fact that his best asset isn't his power, it's his boxing ability, it's his timing, it's his distance control. And we saw that ultimately in the Hopkins fight, how he managed to stop Hopkins from doing his usual smothering and covering up and fighting on the inside. He knows how to control the distance, and it's beautiful to watch. And he does the same in every single fight. He doesn't try to smother guys, he doesn't try to bang them out because he knows he's got the power. He just waits and he times that right hand and he floors guys, and that's why I think that he easily beats Stevenson. I think that he beats Ward if that fight ever comes along. And the Beterbiev fight, I think, is the one that's the real risk to him, because I think, Beterbiev, although he isn't as decent a boxer, I do think that he's got this just crushing bulldozer-like power, and I think that there is maybe some concerns over Kovalev's whiskers that haven't really, shown themselves yet. I mean, he was put down by, who was it that put him down?
Darnell Boone.
Well, Boone put him down. Didn't someone else recently put him down?
Caparello put him down, but it was a feet thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it always seems to be a bit of a balance issue. I mean, which is a bit ironic after I just praised his control of distance and things. But I mean, he got put down again by Mohammadi, but again, balance, and it was ruled a slip. Didn't Silak put him down or really hurt him at some point as well? Maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
I don't think Silak did.
But yeah, I think that there may be some issues over his, chin, and I think that Beterbiev would be the man to really open that up, so to speak.
By the way, did anyone notice last night that that Mohammadi came out to the Terminator theme, which made me I was half waiting for Bilyeu's voice to come out.
It's gonna be vicious, mate.
World ranked guys.
Donnie just wants to see Tony drop back down to light heavy and Kovalev be put in there with him, don't you?
I think anybody would love to see that.
Fair enough. Adam, there's talk obviously of a John Pascal rematch with Kovalev going on. We can neatly segue into the Pascal Gonzalez fight because you've just finished watching that one. I wonder whether Pascal would be able to offer much more than he did in the first fight. He put up a very brave effort in the first Kovalev fight. In the rematch, personally, I just think he'd maybe get knocked out a bit earlier. The clamour for it is maybe because we've been starved of great fights this year, perhaps, and that was one of the better ones, so people are saying, oh, fair enough, we wouldn't mind seeing it. Now, Pascal is in good fights, it's undoubted. That's true. Last night's fight, I would go so far as to say I think it was the best fight I've seen this year. For getting me off my seat and interested in a fight, even though it wasn't the greatest skill set, there wasn't the sweet science going on all the time. The fact that they were winging away on each other, it was just a proper old-fashioned war, and I really enjoyed it. Now, you scored it 6-4 to Gonzalez. Can you see how people feel it was a robbery? I mean, I think robbery is maybe a bit of a strong word. It was pretty close. I thought Gonzalez won, but it was a good fight.
I normally, don't go towards using the word robbery in that, and I normally do give the judges the benefit of the doubt. But last night, how Pascal has done enough to win that fight is, at this stage, having just watched it, is beyond me, to be honest. And I do feel for Gonzalez. Like many, I've never seen Gonzalez in action before, and last night he just went for it, round after round after round. The sixth round in particular was awesome. Both hurt and both swinging away for much of the fight. Pascal is, I don't often swear on here, but he's a twat of a fighter. I mean, the way he kind of gasses, and then he comes, and then he looks like he's not gassing, and he's winging away, and then like at the end of, I think it was the end of the fourth, the last 10 seconds of that round were virtually didn't happen. He backed into his corner, ready to sit on the stool, and Gonzalez didn't follow him. I always remember the Butte last 2 or 3 rounds against Butte was easily winning, and then almost tried to lose that. And I don't see any value in the Kovalev fight at all, and it's just because in light heavy, other than the top two who aren't fighting each other, there ain't really much to go at. As we mentioned last week, there ain't really much to go at apart from the youngsters or the new kids on the block like Bebitev, or I can never get his name right, but yeah, just people like that. There's not really much else to go. So if the Ward fight doesn't happen anytime soon, I'm afraid we are going to see Pascal, and I think, as you said, it will just be earlier. The Kovalev will just finish him earlier. But as for Kovalev, routine last night. I don't think we'll put up with too many of them kind of fights, but we can't moan. It has to happen. It's a mandatory. I love the way he works to the body and leads to the body with that jab, or lead left hand to the body's excellent. And then, as Alex said, he just waits for it to come, and when it does, he goes in for the kill. And he's a mean machine. He's killed someone in the ring before, and he will continue to just be a mean motherfucker, and that's what we want to see. And he's I know he's made a couple of slip ups PR wise, but he is certainly likable. And with Golovkin going towards pay-per-view, maybe that's what they might try and do with Kovalev as well. So, but Pascal fight, no thank you. And I do think Gonzalez can feel very hard done by, if not robbed.
Even though Andy Patterson can't get on tonight, he is very vocal, keeping me right in the Skype. He had a great running theme for tonight's show, which he hasn't been able to put forward. He's describing Kovalev as a magnificent bastard, I think it was, Andy. So he wanted to push that one in there. I don't really know too much about it, but that's Andy's 2 pence worth. Alex, regarding the Pascal Gonzalez fight, a couple of things I noticed. Gonzalez, a bit of a niche reference, this one. Gonzalez reminded me a little bit of a super middleweight from a few years ago, a French guy. I think it was Jean-Paul Mendy you called him. He's quite tall, very strong, good chin, and a great engine on him, great work rate. Regarding John Pascal, he looks a bit like an overweight Spencer Fearon. Do you not think?
That's a great shout, actually. He does look like him. Yeah, I mean, I really sort of just want to reiterate what Adam said about John Pascal. He's a very frustrating fighter. He's obviously got a very poor gas tank, and he can never really fight for the full 3 minutes of a round, whereas Gonzalez just really put it on him for the majority of the fight. I mean, he was very crude at times. I mean, a lot of us obviously hadn't seen or heard much about this guy. I heard a few flutterings on Twitter saying that this fight was going to be a lot closer than people thought it would be, and obviously those guys are gloating happily now, but, you know, Gonzalez, he's a bit crude, and I think that, you know, beating Jean Pascal, who's probably a solid, maybe top 5, top 10 light heavyweight still at the moment, you know, well, technically he didn't beat him, but he did beat him. It was a horrible robbery in my eyes. I think I had it about 8-2 or 7-3. I wasn't scoring it, by the points, shall we say, but, you know, it's very disappointing, and it was very, you know, almost distressing to see how much emotion he went through.
He was distraught, wasn't he?
Yeah, to say the least. I mean, I think we've got a question on it coming up later, so, poor guy, but hopefully he gets a reward by fighting someone decent and getting a decent payday, shall we say. I wouldn't want to say a reward is fighting Kovalev, because Kovalev's going to smash his, fucking head in, but at least a rematch would be good for him. Maybe someone like Isaac Chilemba, who beats Isaac Chilemba. Maybe Gonzalez does. There's a few decent fights, and it seems to be a very US-based division at the moment, I think, which seems to benefit him. So hopefully we see more of him. It was a very, very fun fight. It was a bit crude, but excellent to watch.
Yeah, Kurt, a final word to you on this one. I think Gonzalez didn't really fit in with the stereotype of the typical Cuban. He wasn't, didn't have the sort of skill set of a Rigondeaux. He wasn't ultra disciplined. He wasn't like a Solis either, coming in massively overweight. He was, like I said, he had a great work ethic. Even though he took a lot of shots, he kept on coming, and he was the fans' favourite at the end. He sort of inverted the stereotype a little bit there, but I mean, he can definitely come again. 16-0, 12 knockouts. I was very impressed. I'd definitely like to see this guy again, wouldn't you? Maybe even a rematch with Pascal.
Well, at the very least, he deserves a rematch, Pascal. And we're talking about this Kovalev opponent in Russia. Why not Gonzalez if Pascal doesn't want it again? Because I think Pascal might look to avoid it. I mean, this guy, when you saw him in the ring together, he looked massive next to Pascal. He had a good chin. He had good power. I mean, really, you got to give both guys credit for their will to win and both guys' chins, because they just took some huge bombs and they just kept coming forward. And that's the type of fight you need. This was his big first fight on a massive network, and he put on a great performance. And in a loss, which most felt that he didn't deserve it, he's gained a lot of new fans, and people are interested in seeing him. And people on social media are saying they want to see him with Fanfara, they want to see him with Beterbiev. So he's going to have a future now, and people want to see him, and networks will surely want to put him on. And seeing him at the end crying, you just felt for him because he put everything into it. How many people have beat Pascal? You Kovalev, Bernard Hopkins, Carl Froch, and he should have got the victory over him, and that would have propelled him into another big fight. And just hopefully that loss, people see sense, and he gets that rematch where he gets the Kovalev fight. I mean, either one he'll be glad to take, and he'll give it his all again.
We have quite a few Twitter questions as usual, guys, which we're going to be moving on to soon. Before we do so, the final fight on the HBO card was quite a fun fight. Sullivan Barrera got himself a decent win. I don't know if anybody saw this. I thought he started off quite well, great offensively. We know he knocked out Jeff Lacey in his last fight. Thought his defence was quite open. He looks an exciting guy, but he's going to take a lot of punches. He got badly cut. And the opponent was decent, very game guy, considering he'd lost quite a few of his last few fights. I was quite impressed with him. Did anybody see this one? What were your thoughts on this other Cuban?
I didn't see this because I think this only aired on Box Nation. I don't think it was on in America.
Kurt, Alex, Adam, any of you guys see it before we move on?
I didn't see it, Steve.
Nope.
Oh.
We're not
for once I'm in hardcore
status.
Whoever would have seen that coming?
I mean, I know
Steve,
the guys.
I'm too busy watching. I'm too busy watching Anthony Joshua heavyweight hopes.
Steve, the elitist hardcore, looking down his nose at us casuals.
Okay, we'll leave that where we are. We've got a few Twitter questions, so we'll just go flying straight into them. I think. Do we have some callers, Kurt, coming on? Did you say?
I think we've got the good Dr. Asif coming on soon.
Do we have Rocco?
I think Rocco's about, but is he going to duck us? That's the question.
Right, well, we'll give a call out to Asif and Rocco. If you guys want to come on, then liaise with Alex or Kurt about adding yourself on, and we'll get you on as soon as possible, but we'll fly into the Twitter questions in the meantime while we're waiting for our esteemed guests to join the respective calls. Kurt, we'll start with you. We have Cal Stones, number 1, who's asked a Twitter question, and he says, with Fox retiring and Hay basically retired, who's going to be Britain's next big star that has the crossover appeal?
I hate questions like this on the spot, because you got to think.
Luke Campbell?
There's a simple answer to that, and Alex won't like it.
Go on, Adam.
It's AJ.
Yeah, I mean, the way they've marketed him, I mean, you got to say he's AJ as long as he keeps winning. And yeah, he's a big heavyweight. He looks the part, and you know he's got a lot of the hype behind him. And Sky, you know, you got to say Sky and Eddie have done a great job of him. They've really, you know, it's not just boxing fans who know who Anthony Joshua is, and they've got these documentaries about him. So yeah, I mean, I think he's an obvious one. Luke Campbell, you know, obviously he's got the talent, but he seems a bit more quiet, and he's gone under the radar. I mean, I suppose he would, you know, with Anthony Joshua on the scene. But yeah, he's another one. He's got the boy next door kind of way about him, and I think he can definitely build a fan base where, you know, starting with this Coyle fight.
Alex, I like the sound of this one myself, actually, from Ruben Hemmings, at Hemmings10. I'm a big fan of the governing bodies, and he asks, we all know the governing bodies are all corrupt, but which is the best in all your guys' opinion, and why? Which would be your favourite governing body? Alex, sorry.
Alex?
I reckon he's talking on mute again.
Do you think
I think
so?
Alex is a fan of the IBO, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to mention the IBO. I'll tell you what the thing is about the IBO. Their rating system is actually quite fair, and you'll find this with a lot of the bodies. I remember the WBF, the World Boxing Federation, there's actually 2. There's a foundation as well, but the federation used to have a brilliant rating system in that they used to have the top 10 or 15 were perfect. You know, there was a lot that the fans would have agreed with, that the Ring magazine would have agreed with. It was fair, but usually the person at the top, the WBF champion, was a complete joke. So you'd have like Audley Harrison, for example, as the WBF champion. Sorry about this, Kurt, as the heavyweight champion. Then you'd have Vladimir Klitschko, number 2, and then beyond that, it would be a really sort of sane top 15 that most people would agree with.
Probably because they wanted like the big stars to fight for their belts, you know.
I think James Toney was the WBF champion at one stage.
Sir Audley held it as well.
So Audley held it as well. He beat Rachel Hessisia for it, didn't he, on BBC?
Yes,
Well,
but we refer to him as the Dutch Sonny Liston. That's his nickname.
The Dutch Sonny Liston. There's some great governing bodies out there. We've got there's 3 incarnations of the WBU, the World Boxing Union, all claiming to be the true linear organisation from Ricky Hatton. So you find a lot of fighters who fight for these WBU belts. The qualifier they always say is, well, Ricky Hatton fought for this belt years ago, so that sort of takes it up in the estimation. But it's run by a great character, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, called Don Moose Lewis. He runs the WBU now, and he tried to set up an all-white basketball league a few years ago, and where only white people were allowed to enter. But yeah, I think I'm going off on a few tangents here. But Donnie, who's your favourite governing body?
Is he friends with Hulk Hogan as well?
Who's your favourite governing body?
Good car park talk. This is.
In all seriousness, I think the WBO probably, or the IBF. I mean, the WBA has too many champions, and the WBC is, well, they're getting a little bit better now that the elder Suleiman has passed on, and I like the way that they assented to Kathy Dubin's request to make that purse bid for Kovalev. So it seems as if they were interested in giving us unifications, but of course then Kathy Dubin couldn't back that up and actually, win the purse bid. And I guess when they re-signed the exclusive deal with the HBO, they couldn't get it. But so the WBC under the what's his name, Mauricio Suleiman, seems to be doing a little bit better. But the WBA is just the next one that needs to be fixed up. I mean, to me, they're clearly the worst. The IBF I normally like, and I like that they also give precedence to unifications over mandatories. But letting Lamont Peterson keep that belt after He stole it from Khan under false pretenses. Definitely did not warm me to them. And the WBO, well, they haven't really done anything wrong since they ranked that dead guy sometime back in the 90s. So they're my favorite one today. But that's likely to change when either one of the organizations does something more irredeemably stupid.
Thanks very much, Donny, for jumping in there. Well, Kay, I've rambled on enough, but we've got a special guest. He's on now who's going to keep things straight to the point. The main man, Azif, the heavyweight expert. Azif, are you there?
100% agree again.
Brilliant.
You can't hear us.
Asif,
Wonderful.
Asif can't seem to hear us.
Yeah, I can hear now.
Oh, Asif, you've saved us. I was just about to start talking about the WBM there, but you've jumped. Asif, what do you want to talk about? Is it heavyweight related?
Well, it's first of all, I want to start off. It's good to be back.
It's good to hear you, man. It's always good to hear you, Asif.
No, it's been a long time out. Just wanted a bit of a break, and hopefully, it's can start talking some more stuff again. So basically, I'll be, short and sharp as always. Tony Thompson, as we all know, he recently came out that he failed the drug test, and apparently it came out he failed the drug test after I think the second David Price fight, which is 18 months, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It takes 18 months for a drug test result to, come out. I'm a doctor, and if I do a blood test on a patient, the result comes out the next day. So I think that's ridiculous, really. And I wonder, if David Price might kind of see that as an opportunity to come back. Maybe he can say, well, Tony Thompson, beat me when he was on, when he was on steads, etc., etc. So if he were on steads, I would have won. You never know. Speaking of David Price, I know you got. When was it? Was it last week or the week after? Or the week?
Last Friday it was, I see.
Yeah. So obviously that was a bad knockout, man. That was like a Tom Dallas type knockout. And obviously some of us on here kind of knew about Pepper, that he's got some decent power in his shots after he knocked out, after he did a few scary knockouts of Michael Spratt and Martin Hogan. Yeah, they weren't good opponents, but the way he knocked him out was quite scary. And he's actually done the same with David Price. That was a bad knockout. Will David Price come back? I don't know. At best, what can happen is maybe Eddie Hearn may just recycle him and then feed him to Anthony Joshua next year just to cash him out. It still possibly could sell domestically. You never know with Eddie Hearn. Sometimes he can recycle Frankie Gavin. So I'm sure he can recycle. If he can recycle Matthew Macklin and Frankie Gavin, I'm sure he can recycle David Price. Can Tepper, well, he's a new European champion now. Where does he go from here? Probably back to the kebab house for a while. And then he'll be, I'm sure, Eddie Hearn, I know Eddie Hearn wouldn't mind fighting Tepper for the European title. But I think that would be a good fight, Joshua Tepper. Tepper's, I think he is slightly underrated because of his physique. But he's obviously proved he can bang, and we'll see how he develops.
Asif, do you think that's the Sauerlands will take an interest in Tepper now? And do you think they'll stick with Price, or Price will stick with them?
Well, Tepper's not with Sauerland. That's the thing. Tepper's under Z promotion, whoever they are, and they've actually got a good deal with them. They actually took the Tepper's promotion team took a big risk by winning the purse bid, and it worked out really well for them. So, they took a gamble and it worked out. So, Sauerland did say after the fight that they might build up David Price again. The thing about Sauerland, the problem with them, they always mismatch their guys. Even the world champions, Jürgen Bremer, Arthur Abraham, they just mismatch their guys and just, they try and fool the German public with these, with these mismatches. Just look at Jürgen Bremer's next opponent, some guy, I don't know his name, I'm not going to try to say his name, but I don't know with Howland. I just don't think they've got if they do build up David Price, it's going to be with some more, mismatches, and that's not good enough for David Price, because once again he'll find mismatches, and when he steps up he'll get knocked out.
Would you like to see Chisora against Tepa?
That would be a good fight. I think that would be a very good fight. That would be quite difficult to call. I think Derek Chisora's chin is not the same anymore. I think he's a lot more brittle than he used to be. But I think that would be a good fight. If you ask me personally, that's a tough one to call. Maybe Tepa might win that, I don't know, man. I'll probably sit on the fence with that one, but it's a good fight. I know Frank Warren mentioned that he might put in Chisora with Tepa, but you never know with Tepa's management team now. They might wait for a bigger fight, more cash. And I don't think Frank Warren has the type of money now to try and make the big fights anymore, unfortunately. Speaking of, I know, was it on Monday they announced the Gary Cornish Anthony Joshua fight? It was this week, wasn't it? That just went.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm actually looking forward to this fight. People will be like, "Oh, who's Gary Cornish Pastry, and all these, the ridiculous names that people are coming out with." But you know what? It's a step up for both guys, and at the end of the day,
it's a step up for Cornish. It's not a step up for Joshua.
The thing is that, yeah, but look, okay, let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's look at it. Imagine you're the Anthony Joshua hater. You could say, who was Anthony Joshua fought unbeaten? Nobody really. Let's be honest. Everybody is fought has come for the paycheck, or they've come to survive, or come to not get knocked out, and no one really has come to win. Yeah, Cornish, he might end up being another Tom Dallas, but we don't know that really, do we? We don't know that. It's a bit of an unknown.
He's going to be the next Tom Dallas. He's going to get sparked out in 2 rounds.
Is that because you don't know? Is that just because, are you going by your hunch, or are you going by because you've not seen Gary Cornish?
I've seen a fight of his. He looks god awful. He's a fucking George Groves lookalike. He's about. He's horrific.
But Alex, to be fair, it's a sell. That's what I'm saying. Gary Cornish, British, 21-0, undefeated. Yeah. It's a sell.
It's a sell because it's English versus Scottish again. They're going to trot out that bollocks.
And he's undefeated.
But I'm sure Commonwealth belt. No one gives a toss. It's a shit fight.
Let me tell you. If we'll tell you. The video sent me of him sparring Whack. That was decent.
Exactly. People wanted Whack this, Whack that, Whack this, Whack that. Why do people want to watch? Why do people want to fight? Why do people want to watch Anthony Joshua against Maris Whack? Why? Because Maris Whack isn't a good boxer, really. He's very, very slow. He's there to be. Hey, and what?
He's got the good chin, hasn't he? That's why I think they want to see him go round.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Just because a boxer's got a good chin, that doesn't make him a good boxer. That doesn't make him a worthy, all-time great. You judge boxers by titles, by wins. You don't judge them by a bloody chin. Oliver McCall's got a good chin. That doesn't mean he's better than bloody Joe Fraser now. You know what I mean? So why he's got a good chin?
Better than Gary Cornish, though, isn't he?
Listen here, I'm gonna tell you a dirty secret. I've not seen Gary Cornish fight at all. Okay,
well, that's enough then. You're getting cut off the call.
But you know what?
Come on, man.
I'm trying to tell the fact, guys.
When I heard Dirty Secret, I was just going to switch off quickly. Then I didn't know what was coming.
Look, that's 21-0. He doesn't know how to lose, but he might soon.
You've broken the ethical code, man. Come on.
What?
Don't worry about it. Listen, what about Hughie Fury before we move on?
Hughie Fury, he's only 20 years old. He's coming on slowly. I mean, obviously we don't know how. I mean, I'd like to see him against Anthony Joshua, maybe late 2016. He's got a lot of time on his side, so I can see Peter Fury bringing him on very, very slowly. But I think it's still quite rough around the edges. He's still got a lot to learn. And I probably don't see him stepping up for maybe 18 months yet. But we'll see how he goes. But I think him against Anthony Joshua will be a good sell maybe in 18, 24 months. Just very briefly going on, because I don't have that much time.
Are you sure you've seen Fury fight then, yeah?
I've seen him fight, and if I'm honest with you, I wasn't that impressed, but he's still young and everything, so we'll see how he goes. Very briefly, Antonio Tarver.
What would you prescribe for Hughie's back condition?
For his back condition, probably some paracetamol.
Antihistamines.
Paracetamol. Good old paracetamol. It's nothing cheap. Take you over the counter. Antonio Tarver against Steve Cunningham. I'll just say very briefly, if that goes the distance, Cunningham's not going to get the decision because he never does. Antonio Tova, he's been calling out Vladimir Klitschko. I don't know why. I think he just wants a paycheck to pay off all his debts. We'll see what, he's 46 years old. I don't really know how much he can challenge the top guys. But if he beats Steve Cunningham, then, I'll give him some kudos for that. And I'll end it on tickets, ringside tickets for Vladimir Klitschko against Tyson Fury. I've got my tickets for the fight on October 24th. The ringside, but they're not really ringside because the main ringside ones are reserved for the, the press and the partners and stuff like that. But it's pretty close enough to the action, and hopefully it'll be worth it. It'll be a shame if Vladimir Klitschko gets knocked out, spending all that cash to watch him get knocked out. But hopefully,
is the wife going with you, Asif?
Sorry?
Is the wife going with you, or you're leaving her at home?
Well, that's the plan. But we see what happens in the next 2 months. You know what they say, anything can happen.
Will you be meeting up with any of our the Nuthouse listeners? I know a few people are going over. Will you, sign some autographs for them?
Thing is that I would, but the problem is they're sitting in the very cheap seats at the back. So I don't.
They ain't got as much money as you, Asif. Come on.
So I don't know if I'm gonna have a chance. Really, Thing is that, look, I'm VIP. Yeah, I got them VIP seats. So, I'm only joking. I shouldn't brag, really.
Asif, take no notice. If you start meeting up with them, they might start showing you their flipping boils on their arses or something and getting you to try and diagnose a few things. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But here we're going to move. We're going to move on. One last thing before we go. Go ahead.
No. Go on. What's the question?
No, one last thing from you. You sounded like you were going to tell us something else.
No, but that's me anything. All right, that's fine. Okay, I'll end it on very, very, very quickly, 1 minute, yeah. Chris Adiola is a ridiculous fat bastard who doesn't deserve any more chances, but he'll get one. He's just a gatekeeper, and he gets title shots because of his ethnic race, and that's it. Should he fight Wilder? No. Will he fight Wilder? Yes, he will. Just going on, I'm looking forward to Golovkin against David Lemieux in October 17th. It's going to be a good undercard on there. You're going to have Roman Gonzalez, and you're going to have another heavyweight, Luis Ortiz, back from a drugs ban. So I know it's a pay-per-view fight, but I think hopefully it's going to be a good 4-fight card, which I think we're all going to be looking forward to. Hopefully Gennady Golovkin can win, and after that he can go on to fight either for the WBC or he can fight Andy Lee for the WBO belt. But I'm very, very, very glad that fight's been made, and I think everybody is.
Excellent stuff. Thanks very much, Asif. We'll catch up with you again, hopefully, before the Fury-Klitschko fight.
All right, mate, no problem. And Andre Ward beats Sergei Kovalev. See ya.
Okay, thank you.
Never have that prick on again.
Thanks very much there. The doctor has spoken, ladies and gentlemen. The doctor has spoken. Right, okay, Alex. We believe we've got a Twitter question in from Macho Grande. I'm going to go to you with this one. In the modern era, who's got the best record regardless of losses? Macho Grande wants to give a shout out to Sugar Shane Mosley, and we've got a little list here, giving us some examples why. Oscar De La Hoya twice, Vernon Forrest twice, Winky Wright twice, Luis Collazo, Miguel Cotto, Ricardo Mayorga, Antonio Margarito, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, Canelo Alvarez, Anthony Mundine. It's an absolute. Well. It is an absolute stellar lineup, regardless of losses. It's Carl Froch-esque, Alex. I think that list of opponents.
More Joe Kelsey, I'd say.
Yeah. I'd say Joe Kazagi-esque, more likely. To answer this, is you think of some of the more obvious names, obviously like Shane Mosley or Oscar De La Hoya and things like that, or even Floyd Mayweather, but you'd probably have to look really deep and look at someone like the Journeyman, someone like Peter Buckley or Johnny Greaves or something, who've literally fought all these up-and-coming stars, and you see where they are now, when like the likes of Kell Brook probably fought in like his third fight, or Lee Selby fought in their third fight, or over in the States, Darnell Boone, he's fought Andre Ward, he's fought Kovalev, he's fought Stevenson, but he lost all of them, but he still fought them. If you're going to include losses as part of the resume, then obviously you probably look to it's some of these journeyman types that have probably got the most stellar records. But I see his point that he's getting at, and it's a very interesting question.
Kurt, go ahead. I believe you have a couple to throw into the mix.
Yeah, well, he's mentioned Shane Mosley. I mean, Mosley's record, if you include the losses, is phenomenal. But I think Alex just mentioned him there. Darnell Boone is one. John Pascal, Andre Ward, Curtis Stevens, Erislandy Lara, Sergei Kovalev, Adonis Stevenson, Edwin Rodriguez, Marco Antonio Periban, and Willie Monroe Jr. I mean, that is an incredible record as well. But I'm going to throw another guy out. The White Buffalo himself, Franz Botha. Former undisputed heavyweight champion Michael Moorer, undisputed heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, undisputed champion Lennox Lewis, undisputed champion Evander Holyfield, the number one heavyweight in the world for 10 years, Vladimir Klitschko, top 10 heavyweight right now, Carlos Takam, and also one of the best heavyweight prospects in the world, Joseph Parker. I don't think you're going to find many better records than Franz Botha.
It's a bloody good shout, that. Bloody good shout.
Adam, do you have anything to throw in the mix, or shall I hit you with another question?
Next question, please.
Okay, excellent. We've got Cal Stone's one. He's back with another one. Cal's thrown in quite a few good questions this week. Adam, Gonzalez was in absolute bits last night after his quote-unquote loss. Do officials know that they literally ruin lives?
Short answer, probably no. But Gonzalez, that was probably his one shot on HBO, etc., etc. But I think the reaction from Gonzalez himself and the outcry from social media and people ringside that we're going to probably get to see a rematch. And I tell you now, I'd rather see a Gonzalez-Pascal rematch than a Pascal-Kovalev rematch. So put my name down.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Adam. I mean, because sometimes people say, in the case of Gonzalez or the case of Anthony Collar last week, they always say, well, he's given a great performance at world class now. He shows he can mix it. He'll get other opportunities. He'll get a rematch. But there's no guarantee that he'll be able to perform to that level again. There's no guarantee that in boxing the politics won't intervene. He won't get an injury. You really do sometimes just have that one chance, and it can really affect you, because the next shot doesn't always come.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially in America, depending on who you signed with, and where your bread's buttered, you might not get another chance. But I mean, hopefully he does. I don't think Mr. Monopoly himself had anything to do with that fight or that show last night. So fingers crossed we can get a rematch on.
Mm-hmm. I do think Pascal Kovalev rematch is not the worst in the world. I think the first one was a really good fight and I enjoyed it. I mean, Pascal did have a few moments in it. I know, he was hurt and stopped, but when there's not a lot of options, I mean, I remember Shane Mosley, Winky Wright. Winky Wright absolutely schooled Shane Mosley, and Mosley wanted the rematch. No one really cared about it, and Mosley put up a much better fight in the second fight. And also, Adam's favourite Carl Froch against George Groves. Look at the second fight, difference. I'm not saying Pascal's going to beat Kovalev, but you just never know. I mean, and I think it'll be another fun fight and another, probably knockout.
Yeah, but I think rematches either have to be controversial or close. This wasn't controversial, and it wasn't close. It ended with a knockout with multiple knockdowns. I see why it's happening. I just don't see the point.
And there are better fighters for Kovalev to be fighting. It's not as if he's stuck for opposition. There's Petrov, there's Stevenson, there's Ward, there's Chilemba. I mean, there's a lot more better fighters and options out there.
I think they are trying for Ward, to be fair. So hopefully they can pull that off.
Mm-hmm. Pascal has an awkward style. This isn't a Twitter question, just an observation. Pascal has an awkward style. Did anybody think that Tony Weeks was a bit harsh on Gonzalez for back of the head punches? Because I thought Pascal was ducking an awful low a lot of the time.
He wasn't he? He was right below the belt, and what could he do exactly apart from get down on his knees and try and wing an uppercut up? It's ridiculous. If you're going to stick your head that low and expose the back of your head, then it's your own fault if you get punched in the back of the head, as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Alex, sticking with you, this is a question from Christoph_Ivan. This is an area you've been doing a lot of valuable research in. He says, not a question, but could you use your podcast to encourage people to make a written complaint regarding Nick Hordling's cheerleading?
Yeah, I mean, if I wouldn't know exactly how to go about that, but I imagine Sky have got some sort of contact form, and if people were serious about ousting that absolute waste of space and disgusting, unprofessional, horrible man, then they should get into contact and really do something about it, because I'm sick of him, and I don't know anyone who likes Nick Hordling. I seriously, I haven't heard anyone say a good word about him. Some people, hate Jim Watt, but occasionally Jim Watt has a few astute points. He used to be a boxer, even the likes of Paulie Malignaggi. He's a horrible person, but he's a great analyst. Nick Halling brings absolutely nothing to the table apart from cheerleading and arse licking, and he needs to be thrown out of a window, if not sacked from Sky. He's awful.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much for that one. Kurt, this one's from 40_82. And this, every time we see boxing on a new channel or a new channel comes into being, especially in the UK, we always cling onto the hope that they're going to start showing boxing, they're going to start becoming a power player, a rival, maybe to Sky or Box Nation. And 40 Ant has asked us this question: can BT Sport, stroke ESPN, rival Sky Sports in boxing, linking up with the PBC, for example, as they've shown Thurman Colazo and now Garcia against Malignaggi? Do you think BT Sport, ESPN can become a serious rival? Are they just dipping their toes in the water? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I think BT, they have the potential, they got the money. I mean, how much did they pay for the Champions League? I mean, they showed their intent there. And unlike Box Nation, a lot of people have got the channel for, obviously Box Nation is just for boxing fans, really. Whereas BT, obviously, they show a lot of sport. Obviously, the football is the main one. So they would get a lot more attention to the boxing than something like Box Nation would get. And if they really put their power into it, I think they could become a rival. And maybe that's, I've saw some people say in the past that it'd better if Frank Warren had, maybe could have done a deal with BT Sports instead of doing a Box Nation type thing. And, for his fighters, it probably would have been better because they would have got more access to, the wider range of public. So if they do go for it, I think it'd be good for the sport.
For his fighters, I think it would have been good exposure, but
yeah.
As fans, BT were never going to start picking up the wee niche fights, were they, from the middle of the night and all that. So I think we got the best with Box Nation, regardless of the criticism.
I think the potential is there with BT, but they spent that much money on the Champions League that they've got to plough
what's
everything
left,
into that
Mm-hmm.
and make that work. But I mean, they do have. I think it's still ongoing. They do have a weekly boxing show, which is half decent, and they're kind of neutral as well, which helps. I know they did a documentary with Frotch a few months ago, which was absolutely highly enjoyable. So yeah, they could make a go with it, but with Eddie Hearn's monopoly and his so-called special relationship with Mr. Monopoly in America, where are the gaps in the market to pick it up? Even away from Box Nation and Sky, we've got Channel 5 picking up some stuff. I mean, what's left for BT? That's my question.
Mm-hmm. Alex, our good friend Declan Taylor at Deck Taylor has weighed in with a hefty two-part question for you here. The first part, we'll probably deal with that one first if you want to. Given Hearn's obsession with belts and the fact that Khan has made it clear he isn't fighting Brook in the foreseeable future, why isn't Hearn pushing for a Bradley unification?
Because he's shit. And Bradley costs too much money.
Well, okay, fair enough. But
I really do fear for Brook, whoever Brook's next opponent is, it's going to be absolute tripe, and I don't know how they're going to sell it. They keep delaying and delaying. Remember, they was meant to announce Brook's next opponent at the Manchester show last week. That obviously got postponed, delayed, or cancelled altogether. I do fear for what Brook faces next.
It's going to be Chavez or it's going to be Van Heerden, and it's not going to be good enough. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's Dex. The second part of Dex's question is it a case of the usual doesn't make financial sense, and are we going to see Hearn milk him on UK pay-per-view against the likes of Diego Chavez until Khan finally agrees to a fight? Could you see Kell Brook, Diego Chavez come in on one of these bumper pay-per-views anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean that's the one, isn't it? That's what people are talking about. They're saying it's going to be they're going to stick it on the Fury undercard, aren't they? The Fury Vlad undercard, and they're trying to milk Kell Brook as a pay-per-view fighter by sticking him on pay-per-view cards. But the fact is, he's not really headlining them by himself. The whole what date was it? The 0-2 one, May 30th. That wasn't a Kell Brook pay-per-view. It was a classic Eddie stacked undercard with his 2 world title fights. Kell was just put on there to try and justify it as being pay-per-view, when it really wasn't a pay-per-view card anyway. And now again, if they're going to put him on this Fury undercard, then it's bullshit. But if he is a pay-per-view fighter, then surely he should be fighting the top guys. But if he still continues to fight the Chavez and the Bundus and the Gavins and the just a mess, then which I personally expect him to do. He's not going to step up unless he actually goes to America. Then we're just going to be stuck with it.
For once on a Matchroom issue, I 100% agree with Alex Morris.
I just think the problem is, how long are they going to be able to use Khan? The fact that Khan, they're saying Khan won't face them as an excuse to fight trash, because it seems to me they're getting away with it at the moment. But it's not going to be long before people start saying, well, you know what, Khan's not fighting you for whatever reason, whether you think he's ducking or he wants bigger fights, whatever, accept he's not fighting you and move on. There's the welterweight division isn't Amir Khan. Forget about that fight if it's not happening. It's like there's other fighters to look for now. And, if he's fighting Chavez, personally, I ain't got a problem with that fight, really. Van Heerden's absolute trash. But if he's fighting, after this fight, there's other guys out there. How long can you... If you can't sell tickets and you can't get the guys over here, there's only one thing for it. Either continue facing subpar opposition and getting criticism, or going to the United States and, doing what Amir Khan did and, trying to prove you're the best out there. And I think they're going to have to do that. And Cal should do it because he is a talent and he needs to be... these are his prime years. He doesn't need to be fighting the Frankie Gavins and Jojo Dans.
Exactly. This is the thing that really annoys me about it as well, especially with Khan. It's the pair of them, all they're doing is chasing a particular fight. With Khan, it's chasing the Floyd fight. With Brook, it's chasing the Khan fight. And they're too busy trying to point score and make themselves sound better than they are, and not actually taking important fights. It's not as if those two are the only good fighters in the division and Floyd. There's other fighters out there who are excellent and willing to fight them. You've got Thurmans, you've got Bradleys, you've got, I was going to say Marquez, but he's a bit past it. Rios, maybe. Pacquiao, I imagine he's still going to come back for another fight. They've got all of these fights and none of them are interested in proving themselves. All they want to do is wait for the easier option. I'm sick of it. They should be trying to force these harder fights instead of just getting by and hoping they'll get the scraps from their masters' tables. It's pathetic.
It's pathetic, says Alex Morris. Okay, our next question is coming in from Paul Edwards, 858. Adam, with fighters avoiding fighters, should the boxing bodies enforce some kind of Super 6 tournament? Well, I suppose the only problem with this is, can the boxing bodies enforce anything? Because you'll have one boxing body trying to enforce a Super 6 and the fighters will maybe be swanning off to the other bodies.
Yeah, there's absolutely no chance, because we can't get promoters to work together, TV channels to work together. We certainly can't get belt organisations to work together. It's a sham. And one of the only positives I can bring out of the new Mr. Monopoly dominance is that he's going to end up doing away with titles. That's what we all are predicting. So I think that would probably help, to be honest, because it's an absolute mess, and I'm sick of it. And to the extent whereby today, I've done next week's preview early, and Sergio Mora and Daniel Jacobs are fighting for some WBA trash title, and I've not even previewed it. I've missed it completely off. I'm sick to the back teeth of it, to be honest.
Adam Smith, sick to the back teeth of it, but we'll hopefully be able to win him round. We've got John Jones coming on in a short minute to talk about the Gennady Golovkin-David Lemieux fight, I think it is, Kurt? I think it is. We're just waiting for John.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Just waiting for John to pick up the call.
John, you just have to click join call.
Just click join call, John, whenever you get the chance. While we're waiting for John to join
the John Jones, the big UFC star.
I reckon it probably is, because, this is the Nuthouse and we draw them all in.
It's true, I mean... and he is, he's got a lot of free time now after his, issue with drugs and stuff, so...
Oh, well, he'll be good for the Galahad-Tony Thompson talk.
Well, exactly right.
Yeah, we've got some Galahad-Tony Thompson talk coming up soon. John's going to hopefully jump on the call. While we're waiting for him to do so, Donny Baseball is still with us, hopefully. Donny, Schism666 is asking you, who is the worst real world champion around at the moment?
Is Chudanov an interim titleist?
The regular titleist, isn't
Regular, yeah.
Okay.
Try again.
Yeah, actually, when I first read this, I had lined up about 2 or 3 different answers, and then I realized they were all WBA regulars or interims.
Chuck him out anyway, Donny. Chuck him out. It doesn't matter.
Just give me one quick second. I just want to just take a look at the list because I think it'll be easy for me to make that determination.
Yeah, I'm just getting the list pulled up now, just because I'm struggling to think.
What's Mickey Bay? Or did he drop his title?
Yeah, he dropped it too, so he wouldn't have to fight Shafikov.
Yeah, that's right.
I think John's on that.
Shigayev's pretty bad though, isn't he?
Regular though.
Yeah.
Am I in?
John, how's it going?
Evening, guys.
Go ahead. What's your thoughts on the Golovkin-Lemieux fight? Are you looking forward to this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the announcement. Because Golovkin finally wanted to get his pay-per-view fight. And he's finally got it against David Lemieux in a unification fight. For me, I'm pleasantly surprised about this, as Golden Boy and De La Hoya didn't sound too interested at first in putting Lemieux in with Golovkin so soon after winning the title. Brilliant fight, of course, for however long it lasts, but I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it.
Alex, to go on pay-per-view, David Lemieux, one of the last sort of names in the De La Hoya stable. I mean, did Oscar sort of have to make this one to retain relevance? Is that maybe a bit harsh?
I don't think Oscar actually wanted this fight. I think that the only reason Oscar would have taken this fight is if it was on pay-per-view, so he's getting his money's worth. I imagine he would have wanted to milk Lemieux's title a bit more in Canada. I think he's quite famous over there, or quite a bit of a money maker over there. But fair play for them actually making this fight. I think it's a very test the waters type of fight, isn't it, for pay-per-view for Golovkin? It's going to be good fun while it lasts. I mean, people are trying to make these Hagler-Hearns comparisons, and obviously that's way off the mark. Lemieux is of absolute no standard and no comparison to Golovkin. But it will be fun, and when Lemieux gets launched into the, whatever row you want to call it, after about 3 rounds, we'll see that Golovkin hopefully has got a bit of a better standing in the world, and there's no more excuses about, he doesn't pay enough, he doesn't offer enough money, he's not worth the risk, and now he will be worth the risk, because he brings the pay-per-view money to the table, Andre Ward, etc., and it should be quite interesting, I think. It's going to be a fun fight, at the very least, maybe less Hagler-Hearns, more maybe something like Hagler-Mugabe or something. Maybe Lemieux will give him a bit of trouble at first, give him a bit of a chin test, as it were, but Golovkin will ultimately come back and beat the shit out of him.
I think this is a bit like the Canelo-Lara fight, where Oscar didn't want his guy to take the fight, but I think you got to give Canelo credit for saying, no, I want the fight. I think that's the same with David Lemieux. I think he's wanted this fight. Obviously he's wanted to get paid, and they put it on pay-per-view, so he's getting paid. And he's probably said, if I get this, I'll take that fight, no problem. And I think De La Hoya probably didn't want it, but the fighters wanted it. And fair play to De La Hoya, he hasn't stopped it. He's put it together. And Lemieux's going to be a big underdog. And to me, it's got similarities between Canelo and James Kirkland. On paper, it's a really fun fight. 2 guys who are just going to bring it. But you'd have to go with the guy who is the better boxer, the better technician in there, who's gonna, the other guy's a bit more wild, and Lemieux will give it his all, but I don't think his chin's that great. I think it could be a quick one, but I think just like Canelo Kirkland, it's going to be a fun fight, and the people there at ringside, even if it only lasts 3 rounds, they're going to really be happy with what they see, because it's going to be 2 guys going for it.
John, even though the comparisons between Hagler-Hearns obviously in their standing and status in the game is a little bit overblown, but stylistically it could turn out to be that type of all guns blazing 3-round knockout matchup with you would expect Golovkin coming out on the end of a knockout win.
Yeah, I agree. Stylistically, it does compare to it in a way, but obviously Golovkin, he's the big name, and Lemieux's kind of, to the casual fan, he's not well known yet, but I think it was Alex who said GGG should, put Lemieux away within 3 rounds or so. I think really it's not, Lemieux's not in the same class as Golovkin, but it's a good fight for however long it lasts with the fans, and I'll be one of those people that will pay for the fight.
Assuming he gets rid of Lemieux, as we all expect him to, where would you like to see Golovkin go afterwards?
Well, the most likely idea will be, I think he has the IBF has a mandatory fight coming up between, is it Tiriano Johnson and someone else?
I think Ayman O'Kane's in the mix, isn't he, to fight Tiriano Johnson, somebody was telling me.
It is that, and I think that will be due after the fight between Golovkin and Lemieux, and then hopefully in the spring, Golovkin can get the win of Canelo and Cotto. But I'm not sure if Golovkin beats Lemieux in, say, a few rounds, I'm not sure whether De La Hoya would put Canelo in, because I believe Canelo would fight Golovkin, but I'm not sure, if De La Hoya gets in his ear and kind of says, we'll take this fight, then we'll take Golovkin in a certain while after. I can't see Golovkin getting a winner of Canelo Cotto, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. You said you would happily pay for it, John, just before we move on. It's pay-per-view over in the States, so I would like to think that it'd be Box Nation or Sky would be picking it up regular over here.
Well, we all know Hearn and Sky will put bid in, but I hope Percy gets on Box Nation.
Yeah, I can't see us having to pay for it. Is there anything else, John, just before we let you go and move back to the Twitter questions?
Yeah, I've got one more thing to add. I think one of you guys brought up earlier about people saying that Golovkin's promotional team don't have the money to get in the big fights. And obviously getting a fight against Lemieux proves that wrong. I think it's more of a case of the other champions not really wanting to fight Golovkin, because you hear, I use Carl Froch as an example of saying, he would beat Golovkin and he's too big and strong for him, and then he ends up retiring. I thought Froch should have just, quietly gone out and just retired without mentioning possibly fighting again, because I personally think Froch decided a long time ago that he was going to retire, but to kind of stay relevant in the boxing eye, he would say, I'm going to fight the Gal, I'm going to fight Golovkin. So I wanted to get your thoughts on Froch, on whether you reckon if he would plan to retire a while ago, or whether he generally decided recently if he was going to retire.
Well, the main man who's going to answer that just before we move on, Adam Smith's going to jump straight in and give you your answer to that one, John.
They messed up the retirement, to be honest, the retirement parade / party. They messed it up. He tried to hold on inexplicably for the Chavez fight that was a horrid fight from start to finish, regardless of Chavez getting knocked out whenever it was a few months ago. So, yeah, I think they mistimed it. But at the end of the day, it is a big decision. When you've been, whoever you may be, and Froch was obviously fighting pretty damn close towards the top, it's a tough decision, to call it a day. And I think that because it's took him this long to make the decision, I think it will be a permanent decision, regardless of what Eddie Hearn says about Golovkin, which I think was frankly ridiculous.
Adam Smith has spoken, guys. John, thanks very much for calling. Call in again soon.
Cheers,
Thank
John.
you. Take care, guys.
Nice one, mate. Cheers.
Thanks very
John.
much. We have Rory coming on next. In the meantime, I was hoping to go to Donny to get his views on the worst world champion, but I think Donny's disappeared off somewhere, hasn't he? Yeah. While we wait for Rory to come on, yeah. Pretty poor, wasn't he?
I mean, K9 still has about, doesn't he? I mean, how old's he now? Nearly 50. I mean, he still holds about. I mean, he seems to come back and still get one. So that, I mean, there's so many bouts, and I mean, even if you're not including the regular ones and the silver ones and the interim, there's still a lot of garbage about.
I always thought Cleverly was one of the worst ones, to be honest, but obviously not anymore. Well, especially considering his performance most recent.
Donny, I believe you've got one to throw in the mix just before we get Rory on. I think Miguel Cotto's your man for the worst world champion.
Oh, by far. Nobody has the status of champ after having done less at last than Miguel Cotto.
Okay, short and sweet from Donny Baseball. Controversial stuff as ever, guys. We've got Rory Paddock on the line now. Rory, are you with us? The curse of the join call strikes again. Okay, while we wait...
It's like a Da Vinci Code for some getting on this, isn't it?
I want to get Rocco on just so he can say, "Can you hear me?"
Right, mate.
We just need a simple phone call system, don't we?
Hello?
Rory, what's happening? We can see you, we can hear you. What's on your mind?
All right, lads. Yeah, it's a bit of a random one. I was just having this debate with someone a while ago now, and basically in boxing, as I'm sure you'll all know, is the phrase fanboy is used. You know, we've got Flomos, Pactards, etc. You name it. I was basically just asking, and it's to everyone, is if you had to openly admit to being a fanboy of any fighter within your lifetime, who would it be and why? Now, Adam, I'll leave this out. You know, it's pretty much an odds-on shot. Who you'd pretty much say there, mate. It's fine.
Look, I can give you a quick answer for obviously Frotcher's retired. Canelo. I'm a fanboy of Canelo.
So what would that? Are you not a fucktard, fuck tick? What you watch?
Wow. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan, but fuck me, you annoyed the crap out of me. Outside the ring, Jesus Christ. But, give him props. In terms of answering my own question, I suppose, but in my lifetime, they're not fighting anymore, but die-hard Ricky Hatton fan. Despite the everything that came out for it, as far as I was concerned, he could have had, a white Christmas 365 days a year, really. No, I mean, grew up 20 minutes down the road from where he's from, ended up, been in his dad's carpet shop, that sort of thing, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be probably into boxing, or as much as I am now.
Is that your claim to fame then, Rory? You bought a
that's it. Well,
coil from Ray Hatton?
That's it. Well, I was mascot for Man United when I was little, but we'll skirt over that. But no, random ended up. I didn't even know his dad owned the carpet shop. Walked in, when you're about 15 or whatever, and you don't want to fucking be in a carpet shop, do you? You look up, you look to the back of the shop, and there's Matt and Ricky just chatting away with a brew, and he's like, "What the fuck?" But die-hard Ricky Hatton fan, and despite the ballooning and him being 18 odd stone or whatever the hell he was, no matter what, I couldn't be objective about him. He was just die-hard fan.
So you're a big Ricky Hatton. Then I'm going to open it up to the panel actually and see what they. I suppose it's going to have to be Frampton with me. I'll be a bit of a Framptard. Kurt, what about you? Who are you blindly following off the cliff like a lemming?
It's all about Sarod. I'm an Ortard.
Alex. A Jomo.
Jomo.
Donnie, who makes you get all emotional?
Well, I don't think we even need to say. The guy that Brooke is ducking.
We've all got our favourites. Rory, is there anything else?
Just on the just I'll throw into the mix. You were saying about worst current world champions.
Do me a favor, stop calling me while I'm on the podcast because it's fucking my thing up.
I'd probably say.
Donnie's getting a bit angry there. Sorry, Rory, go ahead.
It's alright, if you're smashing plates and stuff like that, then just boot him off, yeah. But I'd probably say Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I was going to throw him in actually before we moved on. I was going to say, do you think with his recent run of opponents, that's a good show.
Like bin men. I mean, to be honest with you, I've got to give Paul McAllister half the credit for that because he mentioned him as well. But and also, I know that you'll be doing Belly of the Week, but I've sent you something on Twitter. I won't go into it now, but there's something I know, cheating on you, but another podcast where the phrase "casuals cunty comments" come up, and it's basically casuals coming out with absolute bollocks. I've thrown that out to you on Twitter. Have a look at it. I won't go into it now, but it's an absolute cracker. Thanks for listening anyway, guys, and cheers for having me on.
No probs,
Roy, I've got a final answer before you go.
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead, Adam.
It's bang average. Orlando Salido. Massive fan of him. Always have been, and yeah.
He's a prick. Can't stand him.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Rory. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate.
Right, guys. We still have Bellew of the Week to go, as Rory said. We also have a little bit of discussion. I think the lads want to jump in on Tony Thompson and Kid Galahad. We still have plenty of Twitter questions to go, so seeing as time is against us, if we try and keep the Twitter question answers brief and to the point. I know you guys do anyway, but we'll just motor on if we can. Adam...
Can I just quickly say, pray for the person who poor Donny shouted at just then. Just hideous.
Yeah, what was that all about? Donny got pretty angry there.
It's almost as bad as Ayesha shouting at her brother.
But they got an intro, they got her.
The corn hate hasn't even started yet for Don. So, you know, it could get his mood could get worse.
Adam, hold that thought. We've got Joe No Jim Gallagher at Danny Robson LFC wants to know from you. If Thompson wasn't on PEDs, would he be up at 9 when Price put him over, and how different would his career be now? How different would Price's career be now if Thompson hadn't got up?
His career and his suits be.
And his suits, and his suits as well, yes. Sorry.
Massive, huge turning point if Thompson would have stayed down there. I remember I was in the arena for both Thompson fights, and I thought he was going to stay down. Yeah, slight bit of controversy with the count, etc. But yeah, he's changed his career. It's all with Price. He's got all the right tools. He's obviously got the power, the height, but it's just a confidence thing, and it's just never been there since. And we've seen it again last Friday. You know, Tepper. He should have been dealing with folks like Tepper. You know, if he'd have fought the likes of Tepper before Thompson, then he would have dealt with him. But you know that Thompson getting up the canvas has practically cost Price his career. I mean, we can criticise Price for not having the mental strength to come back positively from that, but he just hasn't, and he was just finished that night. It was a horrific performance from Price that night, to be honest. As soon as Thompson got up, you know, leaning over at the waist, not almost, you know, submitted on his feet, it was real bad, and he's never recovered.
Okay, Kurt at Davis Lee 1 asks you, if Luke Campbell wins next week, should he face Crawler, Burns, Mitchell or Cardle for the British title, then move on to the world scene?
Yeah, that'd be great fights. I mean, you know, Campbell's going to win. I mean, he's too far ahead of Coyle. You know, I can see why they've made it, but it's just taken so long to get made. But Campbell will beat him, and yeah, throw him in the mix. His talent, you know, he needs to be in with those type of guys. Ricky Burns, I think he's still showed that he's a force after his last performance when everyone thought, you know, he was well past it. You know, and Crawler's obviously just fought for world title. So I don't know if they're going to really fancy going down a level to them, but if Eddie can make them fights, you know, yeah, that'd be great to see.
It's going to annoy me, that is, the lightweights, because like at super middle, Eddie's going to find excuses for Campbell not to fight Burns or, you know, Crawler maybe world title again, or Mitchell. He's going to find all different routes for him. It's so frustrating.
Kurt, just before we move on, I think, was it Paul McAllister, no doubt, in the chat was asking if things had gone differently for Price and Thompson, would Maloney still have a cock?
Do you want me to answer that? I mean...
What do you think, looking to your crystal ball? I mean, do you think that's what really sent Frank Kelly over the edge? I don't really know, to be honest.
No, that's be honest.
Okay. Alex is still with us, isn't he? Yeah. Alex, at John_Evans79 is asking you, should people who describe all-time greats as terrible for the first half of their career then be desperate for a free ticket to see them?
This is to press past Paul, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, I don't know.
This is why he ducked the show, because he didn't want to answer this.
Oh, right. Do you have anything else you want to say about it? Because I don't know anything about this one then.
What was the question? That call about them being terrible? I think it's like to do with that Paul said that Roy Jones has been awful for the past 13 years. He shouldn't be fighting. I mean, I kind of agree that he should have hung him up, but to me, I'm one of these people that think, you know, once a person's like what you'd call shot or past their best, then, you know, the losses, yeah, they might make a difference, but to me, I don't really look at the losses. To me, I just look at like the performances. I mean, someone like Duran, for instance, he was considered well past his best. He lost to a few guys, but when he pulls off a miracle win like he did against Iran Barkley, to me that enhances his legacy. The losses don't really mean so much to me. So with Roy Jones, I mean, if he carries on, he wants a cruiserweight world title shot. Just let's say if he gets one and he puts up a decent effort, to me that makes him. It enhances his legacy, and I don't think anything can really disrupt his legacy now, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Adam Shieldsy81 is asking you, is a potential Selby Warrington fight as big a mismatch as Campbell Coyle?
Decent question.
Has to be, doesn't it?
Initial reaction, probably no, because we know what Coyle's frail almost, been down, been beat. Can't really say that about Warrington at the minute, so there's potential for Warrington to keep improving. I don't think Tommy Coyle's going to get any better than what we've already seen. So the short answer to that is no. The fight probably will happen, and as Alex has been predicting for a long time, if it's in Leeds, there will be riots.
Kurt, Jack H9320 is asking you, who has had the better learning fights so far, Joshua or Hughie Fury?
I think Hughie Fury has, because he's done more rounds and he's working on stuff. Not saying that he's better than Joshua, will have a better career than Joshua, but I just think Joshua was still, there's a lot of questions about him, and obviously there's questions about Hughie as well, but when a guy's just blasting guys out and you don't see much what he's doing in the ring, obviously he's getting better stuff in the gym and inspiring than what we're seeing in the ring, but as he steps up competition, we're going to see him go rounds. I mean, we saw it with Deontay Wilder. He never went rounds at all, and now he's started to. So, I think at the moment Hughie's getting, more out of his fights, but Joshua could be levels above him, and that's what Sky are obviously hoping for and what they're telling us.
Mm-hmm. Adam, James Kingsbury on Twitter at J_Kingsbury1. He asked me this question on Twitter last night and I couldn't give him a decent answer, so maybe you can. How does a purse split go for a British title fight? Is it decided by promoters or a set amount split? I assumed it's decided by promoters, or is there some kind of set split? Any idea? Adam? Oh, Adam seems...
I would have thought it would have been like the mandatory 75-25 or something for a purse split thing. I'm really not sure on the rules. I should probably look it up, but I can't be asked.
Don't worry about it, Alex. Kurt, Jake Burns MFC is asking you, if a tree falls in the woods and no one is around, is that event more viewed than a Frank Warren card? Poor Frank's Friday night card.
Yeah, and the tree falling would probably be a better entertainment than most of the fights on the card. I mean, when a promoter puts on that card, what does he expect and what does he deserve? He deserves to be criticised for it. I mean, let's be honest, we've criticised Eddie Hearn plenty in the past, and Frank Warren put on a terrible card. And when you're on a channel like Box Nation, which is hidden away, and there's still a lot of people out there who don't know about it. They forget about it. They only hear about it when there's a massive fight like a Mayweather Pacquiao or something like that, when Box Nation might get that type of fight, and then they forget about it again. So when you're hidden away, to keep people subscribing, because not everyone who subscribes is a hardcore fan. Some are just maybe boxing fans who tune in now and again. And I've seen many people have told me that they've cancelled. People have told me that have cancelled who I would consider hardcore fans. So it's not a good look. And putting on cards like that is not gonna, it's not gonna get people screaming down the phone for them to take their money.
Mm-hmm. Alex, Christopher Coulter's asking, I don't really know about this one, but is there any more cringeworthy than Eddie Hearn's Snapchat?
Yeah, I don't follow him on Snapchat, but I've heard a few examples, most recently the Anthony Joshua one. I don't know if anyone saw those pictures floating about where he pretends he's asleep and he goes, I was just dreaming that I promoted the next heavyweight world champion, and then the next images of him hugging Anthony Joshua with like a cheeky Nando's smile. It's very cringe-worthy sort of 14-year-old boy, laddish stuff, I think, and go and follow it if you're into that sort of stuff.
Okay, recommendation from Alex there. Go and follow Eddie Hearn on Snapchat if you so wish. Adam, if you know anything about this one from Mr. Jack Houghton, what was Kell Brook doing last night? do you have any information on what Kel was up to?
Well, Kel Brook, at some point
Who was he doing
during the week, probably tomorrow, will be releasing a statement along the lines of my Twitter was hacked on Saturday night, which seems pretty standard now whenever anyone messes up on Twitter. But yeah, I think he called Brandon Rios a little bitch. Mentioned something about Khan.
So
yeah,
he wanted to
God knows
smack
what
his
Kel
ass
was up
as
to
well.
last night, but he had a good time.
That was the highlight for me. He said he wanted to smack Rios's ass.
Okay, well, he had a good time. That's the main thing, Adam. Ignore the haters, Kel. Okay, we have at SamCarp1992. Kurt, he's asking you, who's the more racist out of Kovalev, Hulk Hogan, and Spencer Fearon?
Well, it's got to be Hulk Hogan, hasn't it? I mean, there's no way out for him. I mean, I don't know why I answer these questions seriously, to be honest, but I'll give it a go. Yeah, Kovalev, he can just say it was a cultural thing. He didn't really know about the T-shirt with the chimpanzee on it with a little blonde kid. Very weird. But who was the other one? Spencer Fearon. I mean, I just think he what people say he roots for the black guys. I mean, I don't know. But Hulk Hogan, yeah, definite number one.
Okay, we're down to our final Twitter question, and then I believe we're going to go on to Bellew of the Week, if we can hopefully muster up some Bellews of the Week in the meantime. Adam, Jack H9320, was Bellew's prediction of Mohammadi giving Kovalev a tough fight correct?
Well, anything that comes out of Bellew's mouth is correct, so yes is the answer to that question.
Well, he also predicted Price would knock out Tepper as well, so he's not had a few. I hope he hasn't been putting too much on his Paddy Power account.
Yeah, well, and he said that. What did he say about Kovalev before Hopkins? He's just a puncher. I mean, he's not that into it.
Okay, guys, that's all the Twitter questions. We have the Bellew of the Week, and then the pretty short preview for the limited amount of action that's coming up next week. So, Alex, if you want to hit the Bellew of the Week introduction, we'll get straight on into it.
Okay,
Now you fucking rat!
Okay, what's the Bellew of the Week?
Okay, guys, it's the esteemed Bellew of the Week section where we put the most silliest and daftest and irresponsible things that have been said during the week all into order, and we try to come up with a Bellew of the Week in honour of the great Tony Bellew, who has spoken so much shit over the years for our listening pleasure. We have a few on the list, and then we'll go through our callers, our panel, to see if they have any more to add on. So the first of all, on tonight we have Adonis Stevenson. He's been nominated for the Bellew of the Week, a former Tony opponent. Tony put up a great fight against Adonis, of course, but he must have landed a fair few punches, because Adonis Stevenson is proudly saying that he will now fight top 20 ranked fighters as the lineal champion. So, as the lineal light heavyweight champion, Adonis Stevenson is happy to take on top 20 ranked fighters to cement his greatness.
Good of him. I mean, starting with Tommy Carpentier, of course.
Yeah.
Let's not knock Tommy Carpentier. He's got an excellent win over Chad Dawson. He, had an excellent fight against former world champion Nathan Cleverly. Mighty Tommy Carpentier.
And he quit against Andrew Fonfara. So yeah, looks good.
Okay, we've got Adonis thrown in there. I'm going to throw one in myself. This is a bit of a petty one, to be honest, but I'm going to chuck it in anyway, just to throw things out.
We love pettiness.
Yeah, I feel a bit bad throwing this one in, but I think it was the Colonel Bob Sheridan was on last night, and I'm always a big fan of the Colonel. He has done great services to shit talking over the years, and he was going on about the fighters' shorts before the John Pascal Gonzalez fight, and he said they're both wearing black shorts, but we should be able to distinguish Gonzalez because he has a bit of gold trim down the side of his, before they went to the middle of the ring, and Pascal was wearing bright blue and red shorts.
Colonel Bob had a bit of a mare, didn't he? But it's like one of these ones where he's a bit like Steve Bunch. You kind of like, you enjoy him having his mare because you know it's going to be funny. I mean, Pascal was getting battered during one round, and he said that Pascal was the ring general that round and gave him the round. So I don't know what he was really on about, but I enjoy him while he's around.
I like him. He's so off of his nut, and he's like just a complete parody of himself that I don't think he can really be nominated for Bellew of the Week because he's just so outlandish and insane now, I think, but he just doesn't care about it.
Okay, we've got Bob in there. Number 3, pretty obvious one. Now, a disclaimer on this one, he has since apologised and said that it was maybe taken out of context or whatever, but we've got Billy Joe Saunders for his views on women. He's had a bit of an interaction back and forward with Katie Taylor over the week. He's made his views quite strongly known, Alex, about women's worth. A bit strong.
The exact quote, I believe, was, "Women's there for cleaning, cooking, washing and sex. They're not to put a head guard on and get punched in the face. Although I must say, Katie Taylor's done extremely well, and she once punched Frankie Gavin up in sparring. All jokes aside, that's my opinions on women, but I'm just a sex maniac."
Did he actually say that, or did he actually write it? I mean, because if he wrote it, how did anyone understand it?
It was in IFL video, I think, wasn't it? So probably transcribed. But there you go.
That's Billy Joe Saunders, number 3. He's been nominated for Bellew of the Week. That one might take some topping, I think actually. But one person who's never far away from our minds when it comes to Bellew of the Week, number 4, is Edward Hearn, the venerable promoter himself, and he apparently Kurt posted a Ring magazine top 5 at £122, but he cropped out someone who we all know is pretty high up in the £122 rankings.
Yeah, he tweeted out a picture of the rankings, and he says, "Well done, Scott Quigg, on moving up to become the number 1 super bantamweight in the world." Now, he obviously, his camera was just a little bit too low, wasn't it? Yeah, number 1, Quigg, and he had no bout either.
Yeah, number 1 was Quigg, number 2 Leo Santa Cruz, number 3 Frampton. It seems to be missing one fight. You can't really place who that might have been. But
yeah, I mean, so Quigg's number 1 in the world now, so fair play to him, Kiko Martinez.
Maybe Luis Petit you're thinking of, Alex, is it now?
I think so. It's definitely a certain fighter that it's on the tip of everyone's tongue, but no one can really say his name.
Well, while we try and scramble desperately our brains to try and think of who Alex is talking about, we'll move on to number 5 at the Bellew of the Week. This one of our earlier callers, Rory Paddock, actually left us with this one, and it's a bit of a belter. I believe it's a guy on Twitter called Ronnie Neal, a bit of a casual to say the least. He had an interaction with Jamie Moore. First of all, Ronnie asked Jamie on Twitter, "Do you think Campbell wins the Luke Campbell-Tommy Coyle fight comfortably?" "I do, champ." To which Jamie Moore replied, "Are you insane? Why on earth would I think Campbell would win when I train Tommy Coyle?" to which Ronnie comes back with, "My bad, sorry, I've never really watched Coyle fight. I've only seen the Matthews highlights ages ago. Now I know better." To which Jamie quite obviously says, "Well, how do you think Campbell will win easily if you've not seen Tommy fight?" The hashtag big shot coming, maybe. With the hashtag big shot coming, maybe pushes Jamie into Bellew of the Week territory. I don't know, but Ronnie then responds. He's watched a few Campbell clips, blah blah blah, but some great bit of banter back and forth between Ronnie and Jamie Moore. Then, so I think
expect Ronnie to be on the Nuthouse next week as a regular.
We've got to try and get. If anybody follows Ronnie Neal 1 on Twitter, hook him up. We need him to come on after Asif next week on the Nuthouse.
I mean, we're casuals. We need that intellectual conversation. Only he can give it us.
But that's the criteria next time. I think as long as you've seen Gary Cornish fight, I think you're allowed on the podcast.
Well, yeah, we've got a heavyweight expert who's never seen Gary Cornish fight, so we can have anyone on.
We've got a couple from staff that Andy put up, I think. First one is from this is what Danny Cassius Connor on Twitter said. He said, "Gavin was a big domestic fight that captured the public's imagination."
Has to be a piss take, surely.
Well, there you go. And Shane Mosley, in response to his son getting popped for PEDs after his BKB fight, I think Shane said, "Calm down. Shane Jr. was given Adderall by his doctor to treat his ADHD. He didn't put it on the form because he didn't take it 2 days before the fight." So there.
You're not having that one, Alex, no? You think there's something fishy going on?
Well, it's not like Shane Mosley to be involved in that sort of business, is it? So.
Okay, we'll say no more on that one. Finally, unless anybody else has any to add in, we've I don't know who put this on forward, but we can't go by without mentioning the Tyson Fury Classic from the press conference this week of this clit is getting licked.
Oh, that's the best one-liner. Even though it wasn't original by him, that was the best one-liner. I was in the stitches at work laughing at that.
Excellent stuff.
I have got to give Fury an outright nomination.
Go ahead, Adam, if you have any to throw in, then chuck them out and I'll put them down.
Yeah, Fury saying that Klitschko can make cruiserweight. And he said it multiple times as well. I think he said if Klitschko don't train, he would be a natural cruiserweight.
The whole, his whole I Film London interview, honestly, you could get about 50 by the other weeks. I mean, one of them, didn't he say, Klitschko's not an adapter, he's an adapter, you could put him in the middle of the jungle and he'd come out wearing a chinchilla. I mean, you know, these kind of quotes, this is what Tyson Fury brings, this is why he's great for the sport, because, you know, whatever you think of him in the ring, or, you know, he brings attention by saying this funny stuff, unlike David Hay, who I don't think, you know, apart from the t-shirt, I think he struggled with the press conference and stuff. I think this is what Fury loves and this is what he lives for.
Do you have any more, Adam, for us?
I don't think so, no. Tyson Fury was also having a beer in his iFilm interview at the Klitschko press conference, which was, again, rather silly.
Do you think that was like the old Mayorga eating pizza on the scales sort of carry on?
He had a cigar after the fight, didn't he, Mayorga?
Yeah.
Can't we, just for fun, throw Devon Alexander back in for the stretched anus? I mean, I'll still relive that.
Okay, we'll put Devon Alexander in. Right, guys, any more additions? If not, we're going to tot them up and move on.
No,
I think that's everything. Okay, we'll give a quick rundown and then we'll get
I've got one, Steve.
Oh, go on.
Sorry for interrupting. Sent in by Joe No Jim Gallagher at Danny Robson. Have you read this one out? It was from Casual of the Week _ Tommy Gooner. You have to listen carefully to this. If Ward can meet GGG, who can meet Mayweather, then by moving both towards, Ward could meet Mayweather. Imagine how fucking boring that would be.
That was like me looking at an algebra book.
That was like the Einstein, wasn't it? Equation or something.
Yeah, if someone meets someone equals XY, yeah, great.
Okay, so we've got Gooner's theory of relativity there as well, number 11. We'll throw that in. Okay, right. I think that's it. We'll go ahead, lads, and then we'll tot up whoever's voting for who. Quick rundown: Adonis Stevenson, the Colonel Bob Sheridan, Billy Joe Saunders, Eddie Hearn, Ronnie Neal, Tyson Fury a couple of times, Danny O'Connor, Shane Mosley, Devon Alexander, honorary mention, and our mate Tommy Gooner. Kurt, who is getting your vote this week?
I'm going for Billy Joe. I think he deserves it. It's a great one, and he's also apology on Twitter. I mean, I assume it was an apology. I couldn't really read it, to be honest, but I saw something that tried to apologise to Katie Taylor, and I think I actually saw her tweet back to him saying she accepted his apology. So fair play to Katie Taylor for taking that and for reading Billy Joe's writing.
Okay, one for Billy Joe Saunders. Adam, who are you going for? Adam Smith, are you with us? Oh, seem to have lost Adam momentarily. Hopefully it's just Adam and no greater problems. Alex, who are you voting for?
Yeah, it's got to be Billy Joe, hasn't it? It's a bit ridiculous, so...
Another vote for Billy Joe Saunders. While we desperately try to get Adam back on the call, I'm going to throw my 2 pence with it. I'm going to go for our friend Ronnie Neal. I'm going to try and get Ronnie on the pod next week if we can. I think that was some
Who was he again?
He was the guy who was bantering with Jamie Moore, asking him who was going to win the Camp fight.
He's now known as the lightweight expert, and he'll be on next week, folks.
Yeah. If you're listening in, guys, try and tweet at Ronnie Neal 1.
I'm going to go for Billy Joe as well.
Billy Joe as well. I think we've got 3 votes for Billy Joe this week, so Billy Joe Saunders, congratulations. You are the Bellew of the week. Well done, Billy Joe. Well, he tries to take it all in, getting a bit emotional over there, I think, at winning this esteemed award. We're running quite late, guys. We're going to jump into a few previews. There's a little bit more going on next week than I first thought. I've been looking up and down the box set schedule there. The obviously standout seems to be the Rumble in the Humber on August the 1st. But before we get to that, we'll briefly touch upon the stateside show. We've got Danny Garcia, Paulie Malignaggi and Danny Jacobs fighting Sergio Mora. Out of that lot, so to speak, Alex, is there anything that tickles your fancy?
No.
Electric volts to the dick would tickle your fancy more, I reckon.
Well, Danny Jacobs, pretty exciting fighter on the way up. We know he's had his problems, and everything that he achieves in the ring is huge. But putting that aside, the title that he holds is pretty meaningless, isn't it? Sergio Mora hasn't been relevant for years, if he ever was relevant. I think he didn't win the Contender many years ago, so he got to the final or something like that. I mean,
it's a horrible fight, isn't it? I mean, Jacobs can be in entertaining fights because he's a puncher, he can be hit as well, but Sergio Mora, it's obviously just diarrhea. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, and the other fight, boy, do they keep recycling Paulie Malignaggi. I mean, I know some people like seeing him get his ass kicked, and I enjoyed seeing Porter do it. But I know Paulie's used as like a test, isn't he, for the guys moving up. Khan did it about 5 years ago. Test the welterweight division, but Garcia's been a welterweight for his last few fights anyway, really. So hopefully he gets rid of Malignaggi. We can end Malignaggi. He can stick to commentating, which he does good at. Garcia can go in there. Maybe we see a Khan rematch later on the year.
So you're going for Garcia and Jacobs, am I right, Kurt, for your two? We might as well stick these down our little prediction league, which is sort of struggling on, isn't it? Like, struggling on like, I don't know, Audley Harrison past its peak. Alex, who are you going for out of these fights? Garcia and Jacobs fights?
Yeah, Garcia and Jacobs, I'd say. I mean, it's obviously a very safe prediction, but they're not very good fights, and yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see more upset Jacobs, because I really don't rate Jacobs that much. But Mora would probably just have to score him or get a really, really, really lucky punch. I don't think Jacobs' chin is up to much. So yeah, Jacobs and Garcia easily. I don't rate Paulie. Paulie's shot, and Garcia should deal with him pretty handily.
I just don't think if Paulie could, a few years ago, if Paulie could, use his movement, he could really make Garcia look horrible for a few rounds. But I just don't see. I mean, obviously he's not going to be able to do what Porter did to him because Porter's a lot quicker than Garcia. But I just don't see Paulie being able to do what Lamont Peterson did, by moving him and making him look stupid. I just think his legs have gone, and for a few rounds it'll be just Garcia struggling to try and catch up with him. But I think he will, and I think he might beat him up then.
Yeah, I think Jacobs is going to beat Mora. I think stylistically this could be horrible, and I'm going to go for Garcia against Malignaggi again. I think I feel bad being negative and everything, but I think it's going to be a poor fight. Garcia's regressed. His level of opposition hasn't been the greatest, and Malignaggi, I mean, he was relevant a few years ago. He's sort of talking his way into these fights now. Adam, who's your money on in the two big fights?
I don't care about Jacobs and Mora. Honestly, don't care, and mainly because I'm a casual, as already established. But Garcia and Malignaggi, Garcia really should be a star of the sport. In 2012 and 2013, that little run he went on, I know Morales was past his best, probably so too Judah, but he did Khan. That Matisse was a massive win, and then since then, he struggled against Herrera and then had catchweight fights against a sparring partner in Lamont Peterson. I've wrote today, Garcia is the epitome of Al Heyman nonsense. I don't know another fighter who represents what the bad side of Al Heyman.
Oh, Leo Santa Cruz.
Sorry?
Leo Santa Cruz as well.
Well, yeah, there's you two. Leo Santa Cruz and maybe Khan coming in third. But, I mean, Garcia should be a bigger star than he is. He should be fighting better opponents than he is, and he should be performing better than he has been doing, in his last 3 fights. Malignaggi, obviously, it's hard to know what he's got left. Porter did steamroller through him. Although Malignaggi's got a few losses on his record, including that one. I've not seen him been dealt with like that before, so the signs aren't good. But I'm going to go for Garcia on points, and I think that might potentially get a decent price on that in terms of betting as well. think Molinari's, I think he's probably got enough about him just to scoot through to the 12 rounds, but can't see it being very entertaining, to be honest.
Well, while we might not be being entertained over in America next weekend, Kurt, there's a good chance we're going to have some good entertainment over at the Craven Park Stadium in Hull, where we have a few fights of interest, I think it's fair to say. The main event between Luke Campbell and Tommy Coyle might end early. It's a vacant WBC International Lightweight title fight, an eliminator of sorts. Considering Luke Campbell's only in his 12th fight, it may be a little bit early for him, but they're headlining the show. We've also got Brian Rose in his rematch against Carson Jones, where Brian Rose is really... his career's on the line. I think he's trying to stay relevant at anything resembling world level. Dillian White's also in action, bit of Ricky Burns, bit of Gamal Yafai, and then the usual suspects on the away side on the undercard. What really tickles your fancy, I suppose, Kurt, on that card, Campbell-Coyle? Do you think it's going to be a decent fight? Do you think it's going to be an even fight, or is this going to be a showcase for Campbell to move on to bigger and better things?
No, in terms of the main event, I think Campbell, he's just leagues above Tommy Coyle. Coyle will give his all. He's a hard-working guy, but it's all about talent here, and I think everyone knows that. The fight that I think he's mostly interested in is the Carson Jones-Brian Rose rematch, because the first fight ended controversially. Both guys hurt in the first round. Obviously, Rose was badly hurt and stopped. I thought prematurely. I thought he should have been given a chance. Was that our mate Ian John Lewis, I believe, as well, so that wouldn't be surprising. And it's not a good look for Brian Rose. He was getting badly hurt by a guy who's basically a welterweight. And I think Jones came over maybe just for the payday, and he as soon as he knew he could hurt Rose, well, obviously, he finished him off. And should Brian Rose box, I think he should win this fight, but I don't think his chin has shown that he can't take the power, so I think it'll be interesting. But I'll go for Rose to maybe nick this on points, or if it is going to be a stoppage, I think Jones will get him late. I think he'll be very careful early, Rose, after what happened in the first fight, but I think that's a decent fight, and it's good that it's been made again after the controversy in the first one.
Adam, just going back briefly there to Campbell against Coyle, we obviously heard the two protagonists in the ring at the last Quigg and Crawler show talking their chances up. Campbell made a bold prediction that he was going to be him by winning was going to be the way the fight was going to end. And Tommy Coyle always just seems like he's happy to be there, and he doesn't want to talk any trash, because he gives me the air of a guy who probably expects to lose. Is that unfair?
I think deep down Tommy Coyle probably does expect to lose, but I think he's right, though, in a sense that this doesn't need to be sold as bad blood. There is not bad blood. We've been through this before on the podcast. There's not bad blood. It should be, it should be sold on, may the best man win kind of thing. That's how it should be sold. They are rivals, but you don't have to be hating each other to be rivals in this game. You can still be rivals, but this is Sky gone mad, to be honest. But Campbell is, does appear levels above at this stage. Coyle, we don't need to forget how bad a way that Coyle was in his last fight against Martin Geffin. I mean, that was. I don't want to get arrested, but we can blame it on Tommy Allen, but that was as close to corruption as I've ever seen in a British ring, to be honest. So Matchroom and Sky can count himself lucky that Coyle's got this far without being Sparko again after Derry Matthews. I think Campbell will do him, but I don't think it's going to be quite as easy as what people think, i.e., 3 or 4 rounds. I think it'll be longer than that. I think I'm going for 8 or 9. Coyle's obviously going to bring something that Campbell's yet to see. He's going to come and have a. I don't think Coyle's going to come all guns blazing, because Campbell's accuracy is excellent, to be fair. So, and that's what would see him get rid of him in 3 or 4 rounds. But Coyle's certainly going to be the aggressor. I think Campbell might have to put him down more than once to get the job done. But I do see Campbell coming out on top. As for Rhodes and Jones, I think it's good that fight's been put back on. I bet they've had to pay Carson Jones a few quid. He obviously likes fighting over here, but I remember his comment straight after the first fight, they'll have to pay me more than they have this time to get me back. They obviously had, but regardless of the farcical and disgraceful stoppage in that fight, it was Brian Rose who was hurt more than Carson Jones. They was both hurt in the first round, Rose more so. I've watched it back a couple of times today, that single round. So but Brian Rowe should be, it's make or break for him. He should be dealing with Carson Jones. Carson Jones is not a light middleweight. Naturally, Rowe should be dealing with him. Can he deal with him? We'll find out Saturday, and I think it's a pretty decent card, to be honest. Regardless of the way it's been sold, on the back of Manchester the other week, which wasn't pay-per-view, I think this is, 2 or 3 decent fights on there, and I am looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's the worst card in the world. Alex, would you concur with that?
Not the worst. I mean, we've seen just 2 days ago a pretty fucking good candidate for one of the worst ever, but it's not one of the best either, is it? I mean, they are trying to sell it on this false premise of rivalry and hatred and bad blood and needle and all the other stupid cliches. The undercard really ain't up to much. Obviously, the Brian Rose Carson Jones fight is pretty equal, I guess. It's a 50-50 fight, which is something you don't really see on a Hearn card. But Ricky Burns against Prison Canteen graduate and Dillian White against absolute muck really doesn't prop the rest of it up. It's mainly just a fight to sell tickets in Hull, isn't it? It's to exploit the whole market into believing that this is some sort of significant fight when it isn't, and it's just holding. I've expressed my opinion before on this. It's just holding Campbell back. Campbell deserves more. He deserves to be fighting for world titles soon. Sooner rather than later. He should have dealt with Coyle last year. He should be fighting the likes of Mitchell, Crawler, etc. by now. And should be in the lining for that world title fight himself.
I think the problem with Hearn, I mean, Adam mentioned it there, the bad blood. I think the problem with Hearn is it's a bit like a wrestling promoter. When he first got into this sport, as a promoter himself, he was with Audley Harrison in the David Hay fight, and he saw that the bad blood between them, and I still don't believe there was bad blood between them at all, but the apparent bad blood between them sold, and it sold a lot. He's also saw huge success with Carl Froch and George Groves. Bellew cleverly was sold basically just because they disliked each other, and it seems now that all these fights need this angle. I mean, Khan Brook, Frampton, Quigg, Diggle Groves, every one of these fights is like a wrestling promotion where you got the one guy who's maybe looked on as the good guy, the bad guy, and then there's all this hatred and, you got to pay to see him settle it in the ring, or, you tune in on Saturday to see him settle it in the ring. And I think from what he's seen and, he's picked up on that British fight fans, they like it. I mean, hardcore fans, might not like some of these things, but I think from a casual perspective, they're buying into these fights, and boxing has shown all over the world that those fights have always sold, and I think that's what we're going to see a lot of now. And I expect Luke Campbell will suddenly have a dislike with a Kevin Mitchell or an Anthony Crowler soon, when hopefully that those fights are made.
I think Kurt as well, it even goes back to his dad's time when he was promoting the big fights, the sort of Eubank-Ben rivalry and all that. He's seen all that, hasn't he? And then Eubank going over to Ireland and boxing Collins in Cork, and it does sell, doesn't it?
Well, it's the casual appeal, isn't it? Casuals want to believe, or it's being sold in their eyes that these guys actually want to beat each other up, because it's that primal instinct. That's what boxing brings out in a lot of people. It's the fact of seeing two guys beat the crap out of each other. But if you want to see that, you just go outside a pub on a Friday night. You want to see them hurt each other, and that's what they're trying to sell, that these two guys want to hurt each other to make it more a realistic fight rather than a boxing match, an entertaining sport spectacle. They actually want to see two guys beat each other up, and it's a bit wrong, but sometimes it adds a bit of intrigue, doesn't it? But when it's fake as it is, blatantly fake as what Hearn's doing, then it just does get very tedious.
That's what I mean. When it's done naturally and organic, like Froch Groves, I mean that just seemed to spiral out of control, and it was it became massive. But when it's just staged and put together like a wrestling thing, it just no one buys this Campbell and Coyle. I think Campbell's not a bad guy at all. He's a quiet guy, and I think you should just let him be himself and let him be like that. Coyle is not a bad guy either, but they're trying to say to him, you say this and say that. It's just. No one needs to see it. Just say, they're two guys, they're from the same area, they're both fighting because the locals want to see that fight, and, they're both honest pros who want to, put on a good performance. No one's got a problem with that, and, I don't need any bullshit angles.
Mm-hmm. Summed up well by Kurt Ward there. It's the fight the locals want to see. Okay, well, I think that's all, folks. We've shot our load for tonight. It's maybe time to call time. Andy Patterson was knocked out early, but we managed to get on with it anyway, so I'd like to thank the excellent panel consisting of Adam Smith, Kurt Ward, Alex Morris, Donny Baseball. Cheers as well to Azif, Rory and John for jumping on and giving their thoughts. We're always grateful to the callers and our many loyal listeners on Mixler. And don't forget, if you love or hate the pod, then listen out for the YouTube videos during the week, guys, and leave a review on iTunes if you get a chance as well. Thanks, as always, for joining us. I've been Steve Wellings, and we'll speak to you all next week.